Communist Party of China is that despite everything else that we read, the one thing that has stood out is what they've been able to do in a period that we now say is 30 years. The number of people that they have brought out of extreme poverty. Heading to 800 million people removed out of extreme poverty. The development record of the country, bringing the country before COVID struck to being the industrial hub for the entire planet. The place to go to when you want to do business. A complete change in fortunes. The Secretary General of the Central Committee and the President of China, the Communist Party of China, I always have difficulty pronounce this name, but I am going to just take a leap of faith and dive right in. Xi Jinping.
Yep.
Okay?
Done.
This is what he said. The pursuit of democracy is a universal value of people around the world. But the democratic system and the path of each country should be decided by its own people rather than imposed by external forces. Absolutely true. Yes, one talks about the issues that one sees about the Muslim minority in China, the way in which they're treated.
Yeah.
One looks at the way people who are considered dissenters are treated in China, and one wishes they would be treated better, or the whole subject of human rights would perhaps, should we say, take a different turn. But we cannot remove, despite all these things that have big question marks, we cannot remove the one simple fact, and that is that China is a success story.
Absolutely.
Yes.
China,
It's a success story.
a big one, eh?
A very big success story.
So they brought together how many political parties from all over the world to discuss this particular journey into the future.
Precisely. I mean, think about this, Eric. One looks at what the West has referred to the Chinese incursion,
Yeah.
or the way they've come into the third world. It didn't begin with the Jubilee Party presidency. It began during the presidency of Mwai Kibaki. If you recall correctly, the one thing that the Chinese Communist Party and the government did, they invited African presidents. While the West was dithering and moralizing aid and teaching and treating us like kindergarten children who needed to know to be taught how to walk straight and even how to hold a spoon, China said, "Come forth, my brother.
Just come.
What do you need?
Let's talk.
Let's
Let's
reason together.
What is this thing that you said was a problem?"
Let's see how we can sort it out.
Precisely.
Let's
and do
work.
not step on your neck
Yes.
while you sort out yourself.
Yes.
That's all.
However,
Just in case you fail to keep your end of the bargain,
There's
you
a
can,
little detail.
For
have
example,
a
here,
free hand
what-
at your port. Or
all the things that we have said, the group editorial director of The Nation, Mutuma Matthew, has penned an opinion piece.
He has.
He does that every Friday. He says, I have been stewing, fuming, and obsessing about this issue for months. The government should issue a gazette notice banning the teaching of engineering, architecture, quantity surveying, interior design, and all those other technical courses in the building and construction industry. I shall respect it for its honesty. He goes on to say, what is happening here is we are training engineers. He says his basic understanding of high school economics tells him that the way a government spends determines how a country develops. He says, over the past 8 years, we have given 4 Chinese firms construction contracts worth 4 trillion shillings. According to research conducted by him and a friend of his who is an archaeologist who works at the Kenya National, who spends time at the Kenya National Archives, John Kamau. I have no problem with Chinese companies doing work in Kenya, whatever the value. I do have a problem with the fact that they are quite capable of doing very shoddy work, but that's neither here nor there because when supervised, they can do a very good job. The issue that he takes is the fact that all labor, all consumables conducted by these laborers, everything is coming from China, and therefore all these 4 trillion shillings that we're paying these Chinese companies is basically going to China. We are exporting taxes by the shovel. That is the headline of this particular opinion piece. He says, I have been to a Chinese labor camp. He calls it a labor camp. Everybody lives inside the camp. Everything from the emergency kerosene lamp to the vegetables they eat is imported from China. The Chinese walk on your economy with dainty feet. They leave no footprint. From the information I have from my sources, they come with the architectural designs and drawings. Everything is done by Chinese professionals. If there's a need for a Kenyan professional, they are paid to be the fig leaf, to sign here or there. Let me tell you what truly breaks my heart. If you put up an advert for any job in this country, however junior, the disproportionate majority of those who apply are engineers and architects. There are engineers and architects in this country doing the oddest of jobs. Our great engineering and architectural consultancies are largely destroyed.
Do I hear him to be saying that the Chinese are to be blamed for this?
He's saying that the government is to blame for this. He's saying the way our government is spending money, the Chinese are doing things, but we are just laying back and letting them do it. For example, on the issue of labor, should we not be insisting on certain professionals and saying, up to this level, yes, you can bring in a Chinese to supervise, but all the other engineers, get them locally. All this, get them locally. If it's an issue of mismatch of what you're trained in and what you can practically do, then as a government, be very proactive in thinking, how do we match what this industry needs today versus what we are training? All those things insist, but we are sitting back. So the companies are given contracts, 4 trillion shillings worth of contracts. Everything, the engineering drawings, the architectural work, everything is done from abroad. All the people who are coming to do this job are coming from abroad. They are paid. They do not spend even on food, even on vegetables locally. That means that not a shilling of this money is getting into the economy. It's all going back out.
He has an extremely valid point.
4 trillion shillings has basically gone to China.
He has an extremely valid point. The Chinese didn't invent this way of doing business, by the way. Huh? If you look at what we term as foreign aid, it was premised on this same thinking. Aid doesn't come with a trunk load of money that is given to you. No. It comes in the form of consultancy services from their people, the people giving you. So this money really starts going to them, these expertise that they brought to you.
High-end vehicles and
High-end
rents.
yes, and then equipment. Now, equipment which will need repair and refurbishing from their own country. So essentially, they'll be growing their own industry by ensuring that the parts and whatever else is required. And so for the length of time that you're doing business with these people, what you're doing is growing their businesses.
Yep.
It is a model that has been used for aid for the longest time. Now, people who have stood back and said, folks, we're not going to do it that way. We've seen them. The late Magufuli was one of them. He said, gold in our country.
Process it here.
No, we're going to process it here. The Ghanaians did something similar, didn't they?
Give us back our
Said, folks,
cocoa.
this chocolate is all good and well, but you know something?
We can make
This
it.
cocoa, it's us who actually have this cocoa. So why don't we have a different discussion on it? Our friend, Matthew, is actually right. He has a point. An extremely valid point.
Yeah, and our government should be put to task.
Yes.
When you're signing these contracts,
When you're selling your own people down the tube,
what
for
are you
heaven's
doing?
sake.
How do you ensure that we benefit?
How do you ensure that all these people who are trained also have a foothold? Is this not the opportunity? Okay, let's say they have superior expertise. They may. They do.
It's an opportunity for
For
transfer.
our people to be immersed into that system so that by the time these projects are over, that expertise has been cascaded
so
to
that the
us
next
as well.
project, now you hire
We have people
local.
who can actually do it.
Yes. Conversations continue to the next hour. Good morning. This is the Situation Room on SpiceFM and online. It's now 7 a.m.
Sugar and spice and everything nice. Spice FM.
Spice up your life. This is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto. President Uhuru Kenyatta is expected in Ukambani on a visit that had been postponed earlier due to fears of further spreading COVID-19 and the need to adhere to the COVID-19 protocols. The head of state met with leaders from the region where it was agreed that he would visit today. Reports that there could be misunderstandings among leaders has been denied by Wiper leader Kalonzo Musyoka.
Kuna tofauti za kisiasa, ndio sababu Mheshimiwa Uhuru Kenyatta kufika upuzi mtupu. Kwa hivyo tunakuja kuutupilia mbali. Rais hawezi kuzuiliwa na watu ambao pengine waelewani kisiasa, lakini kama kuna eneo Kenya hii ambayo iko na umoja wa kisiasa na Kenya nzima inajua ni eneo la Ukambani.
The Health Ministry is still awaiting approvals from the Cabinet and other institutions to distribute various equipment at KEMSA warehouses aimed at fighting COVID-19. Addressing the Investment Committee chaired by Mvita MP Abdul Somad Nasir, PS Susan Muchacha said the goods purchased at a cost of 6.3 billion shillings had been stored despite the demand by thousands of health workers and the ministry to meet all the requirements.
The ministry resubmitted a cabinet memo on 6 July 2021 communicating the clearance from EACC and seeking approval for disposal of the commodities which the country really needs at this time that there is a surge which is expected to culminate into a fourth wave from this month of July. The matter is still under consideration and discussion by the cabinet, and from the way it went is that we are likely to be given the go-ahead.
Police continue to investigate and search for the whereabouts of Corporal Caroline Kangogo, who allegedly shot dead 2 people. Officers from the DCI say Kangogo could have traveled to more than 5 counties and was suspected to be in Kisii, although the investigations was hampered by the fact that she may have thrown away her phone. Doctors who conducted an autopsy report on Vega said he died after losing a lot of blood and that samples had been taken for toxicological analysis.
And it had caused very serious, or what we call severe head injury, because it had mutilated part of the brain we call the cerebellum and the brainstem, and also it has caused massive bleeding into the brain. The other findings we found was just a small bruise on the feet. He did not have any other major injuries, and he had lost a lot of blood as his body and the organs were quite pale.
President Uhuru Kenyatta has told athletes that will represent Kenya at the Tokyo Olympic to carry a sense of duty during the games that are set to begin in 2 weeks. Kenyatta asked them to uplift Kenya's reputation in the community of nations by being disciplined and carrying themselves with dignity. Kenya is sending a total of 113 athletes to the Olympics and Paralympic Games. This is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto.
SpiceFM, Nakuru.
Okay, guys, we're looking at flowing traffic on Mombasa Road. Not too much of an issue here at all. A little bit of traffic coming in from Jogo Road, not too crazy. Outbound of the city, we are looking at poor visibility because of very low fog today, so please watch out for that. Okay, Mlolongo outbound, jam. What's going on here? We have to look at that. There's a little bit of a hold-up right around the weighbridge. Not sure if the vehicle's coming in and leaving at this point, but it has slowed things down considerably. Let's take a look at that in a short while and see how it will open up. Outer Ring northbound, a little bit of an issue there as well with some traffic, but looks like it will open up within a short time. Keeping an eye on things. Talk to us, guys. Help us out to see what and where you might be stuck. SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Text 40127.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
It's 5 minutes after 7. A very good morning to you. How are you doing? Welcome to the second hour of The Situation Room. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. CT Muga, today's proverb.
The beak of a bird is what tells you what it eats. You shall buy
And
that.
it's not because it has not wiped its mouth
Nope.
after eating.
No. And also, it's not because it was eating with a fork and knife. No.
Okay. Shall be the shape
You know,
of the beak.
the thing about Proverbs, remember what JSO John C.B. Okumu said yesterday. Sometimes when you look at these Proverbs, there's choosing them and then there's actually saying them. What may not be obvious is that when you say them, you also hear them yourself. And when you hear them on your own, it's very different from when you hear them in the presence of others. And at times you wonder, why on earth did I pick this proverb?
Start questioning your own self.
Yeah, you start asking because you know what the proverb, the message the proverb is supposed to be carrying, but you're thinking, yeah, but surely. Or it suddenly strikes you that there's something else you should have considered and you didn't quite. Anyway.
We'll be having a conversation about fighting fakes and identifying truth from fakes with the veteran journalist Komchesti Makoha, who's on the way, got stuck up in that traffic. He'll be here shortly. We'll be talking about other things, but just before we move on to something interesting, I have something quite bizarre here. So, there's a state in India called Gujarat, the home of Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Here, production and sale of liquor is prohibited. Okay?
In the state of Gujarat.
In the state of Gujarat. However,
Commerce.
those who consume this have not been deterred by such small things like prohibition by law. They have found ways and creative ways of brewing liquor. So there are some farmers who keep their form of cattle called buffaloes, domesticated buffaloes. And there's a place where the buffaloes go to drink water. They've put up troughs for drinking water. Or is it troughs?
Troughs.
Yes, they have established a drinking point for the cows.
Yes.
Carry on.
So now in these particular places, they have made sure that their changa brewing system is hidden and masked with the troughs. So there is a water above, but there's a false bottom, and below the false bottom is the brewery, the distillation
process.
that's taking place there.
Lovely.
So on this particular day, there's some leakage that happens and some seepage that happens. Buffaloes come and they drink what? Water, and the water has
Been turned into wine.
changa. What do the buffaloes do? Just like humans would do, they started singing.
Sorry?
Well, they started from frothing in the mouth and behaving funny.
Okay.
And singing, yes, tutakunywa maji sana.
Nakula nyasi.
Tutakula nyasi.
Upende
Upende usipende. Mimi ni mbogo. Usiniite nyati. So some other farmers start noticing, hey, there's something wrong here with these animals. What's happening? So they go and check. And they find, of course, the ingenuity.
As in, lo and behold.
I love it.
The ingenuity is basically blown out of the water. Literally.
Literally.
Some things to consider for our ingenious brewers. Because the chiefs already know that you go to the river and you hide these things in the river. How about you think beyond?
How about you simply legalize it and use the many arms of government that we have to help these innovators purify or make safe for consumption this product? Because they wouldn't be distilling it if there was no demand for it. Yes, there's a market for it.
True.
So regulate
Waragi.
it, standardize it.
Konyagi. Same stuff as changa, same. But our sister countries realize, look,
They're bottling it and
why
they're
don't we just
selling it
bottle this
globally.
thing and
You can find waragi in New York.
You know, in the same way you find farmers putting out their milk to be taken to the co-op so that it can end up in some cooling plant and on to other productions. Why not just start a distillery somewhere and tell them, okay, you bring your product at this stage and or create a circle. People are going to be drinking anyway. Just make it safe. Because so long as it stays underground, my goodness, you have no idea what it is they put in that thing.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. No clue whatsoever.
It's even more dangerous.
It's infinitely dangerous. Yes.
Yep. So Jacob Zuma presented himself to the authorities yesterday. The nation is describing him as South Africa's charismatic yet divisive former president. He was jailed for 15 months for snubbing an anti-graft judicial inquiry commission. South Africa's ex-president Jacob Zuma, once jailed for fighting the apartheid regime, is returning to prison, this time for contempt after handing himself into the authorities. He was jailed for 15 months for snubbing an anti-graft judicial inquiry. Charismatic and jovial, he fell from grace before the end of his second term in 2018. Ousted by his own ANC party over accusations of corruption, he was replaced by the current president, Cyril Ramaphosa. Zuma, whose middle name I cannot pronounce, means one who laughs while grinding his enemies. Gedliel Lekhisa, that's what it says, started off as a herdsboy and rose to become South Africa's fourth president. The 79-year-old was once dubbed the Teflon president for his ability to evade the verdict of justice. So he walked out of a special panel investigating massive state corruption, accusing its chair, Deputy Chief Justice Raymond Zondo, of bias, despite dozens of witnesses having linked him to malfeasance. Zuma is no stranger to impropriety. He also faces 16 charges of fraud. So please understand, this trial has actually not been decided. What he's going to jail, what he's going to prison for now is contempt. That he failed to show up to a commission of inquiry. And that is why he's going. The case is still ongoing, and it could see him spend longer time if he is convicted. So he presented himself, and now the talks are that he could be there for just 4 months on good behavior, if that's the case. But yesterday we saw pictures of him being taken through the protocols, then making his home for the next 15 months, as what we are told.
Now, there are very many things that come out of this development of Zuma's. Number one, was it unexpected or was it expected? Was it expected that a former president, somebody who has been as powerful as Jacob Zuma has been, at the helm of the African National Congress, becoming the president, despite being kicked out of the office like he was by the members of the ANC, but he still has a lot of influence and clout in the country. And we saw a lot of it.
Yeah.
But here he has basically ended up in court. And in all these stories, you are not hearing as loudly a story saying the current president is persecuting his predecessor. You're not hearing many stories, or you're not even reading many stories saying, okay, so this must have, it appears it came from instructions from President. No, it's all about the system as it works. The correctional services saying, Mr. Zuma, we are supposed to come and pick you. You're supposed to come and stay here. We expect you to come. There's nothing like orders from above. There's nothing like, there's a system that appears to be shielded from political interference? Or is this just an appearance?
Remember, have you ever heard of a presidential election in South Africa?
No.
Yes. So it means the party more or less determines who becomes president. Now, when you have such a system, what it means is there are very many organs within that particular structure that can arrive at what ought to be done. So that by the time the president is making a statement, see, the assumption that the president is the one who decides. No, presidents don't decide. Even dictators, as we call them, have people whom they have to listen to and whom they have to consult. They all do. And in a setup such as this one here, you have to ask yourself the question, so what exactly did they arrive at, and why did it get to the point where Zuma turned himself in, because activities that preceded this did not indicate anything of this sort. The talks were he is not
going
going
nowhere.
anywhere
the
near
support that was
anybody's
rife,
jail.
and the support that was rife across the
Hey,
country
it was
was
serious.
like, absolutely not. Our man go in for what? It's not going to happen. We're not going to allow it.
Yes.
And we'll say as such to the government of the day
Yes.
that it will not happen that Zuma spends a night in prison. But voila, here we are.
So what are you saying, City? That it's not that the system, the justice system, is so strong that it cannot be shaken. You think it's because the party and the powers that be at the
yes.
party have determined that
Yes.
Zuma will go in.
Yes, I'm talking the political system, because this involves talking to and saying, look, given
Can we
where
not
we are
sort
right
this
now, the
out?
problems we're having,
Yeah.
Chief, turn yourself in. It'll be good for everybody. We'll just make sure we take you to some cushy setup where
all
you'll
right.
be reading the newspaper, drinking your favorite drink, and having. The only thing is, we can't let you out in public, but you can go home even at night if you like.
If you want to.
hang out and have supper, then come back in the morning so that at least people can see you. That sort of arrangement.
And here I was thinking, this is a good thing. This is a good signal.
I don't
That
know.
strong institutions.
No, it's good.
It is a strong
It's good.
institution.
It's a strong institution. It's
No,
just
it
that
basically means the whims of those in power are the ones that are determining what's happening.
No, the court did what it did, but the court could have been defied. We see it in our own country.
could have said,
court
no,
orders
we
are
will not
defied
listen
daily.
to this court order. But we say in this
Daily.
case, they're saying, all right, listen to the court order. Just do what they say. Because we're not looking at these 15 months. We're looking at what is going to happen later on.
Yeah, but,
so for
but
now,
it's for political expedience. It's for political reasons, not because of following the rule of law
No,
or justice.
of
It's for
course not.
political expediency.
It just means
And
that
that's why I'm
this
saying
move,
that means institution.
them agreeing to this move allows for something else to happen.
Eric, the very thing that you're saying is not allowing for is what it allows for, because it's setting an example. If a former president can turn themselves in and say, okay, folks, if that is a court order,
I'll do it.
Let's go by it. You are breaking ground. You are saying these are new rules. This is how we're going to go about things. If he had done the complete opposite, again, he would have set the tone that other people would have followed and said, but if Zuma didn't go to jail, why are you talking to me? So if Zuma could turn if Zuma could turn himself in, then, my friend, the legal system, if you ask me, have got a shot in the arm. They now have an opportunity to do things that ordinarily they couldn't do. So it isn't quite what you were alluding to, sir.
Sijasikia. Lakini ni sawa tu. Komchetsi Makoha joins us in the studio now.
Hi.
Hi, good morning.
Karibu.
Komchetsi is a veteran journalist. He is very many things. What else are you? Author, critique, farmer,
Yes, all those things.
combined into one.
As Kenyans try to do, try to do a lot of things at the same time. But I like to just think of myself as a journalist.
So, journalist Komchetsi Makoha joins us in the studio. We'll be talking about the fighting fakes conversation, and we've been having this conversation about fighting fakes. It's important for people to identify the truth and also to identify the fakes. How do we do this? We all fall into this trap. We'll be getting into this conversation with Komchetsi shortly. But your views on what's happening in South Africa?
I've got a more optimistic view than CT, which is that South Africa really, coming from its history of apartheid, had to create a very strong foundation of constitutionalism and rule of law, and I think it has acquitted itself over and over and over, and this was going to be one of those. It was one of those sitting on needles moment, and I think they've acquitted themselves again to demonstrate that yes, it's a society of rule of law.
So this whole, back and forth, the kerfuffle about, he's not going in anywhere, we're going to have a demonstration, people like Tokyo Soswale coming out and saying, our president is not going. It's all one side, and then the system and the rule of law being on the other side and staying firm.
That I mean, to that extent, then the negotiation is that the ANC would have to demonstrate that it is a rule of law institution, because if it doesn't follow the rule of law, remember the Bruder Bond are still there, all those other pre-apartheid formations are there, and they are not operating within the law. So if the ANC, which is in charge, doesn't want to follow the rule of law, it invites all those other people that have their strengths in different different places other than the law to exercise their options. That is frightful.
Indeed, it is. Positive thing for Africa?
I think so. I think it's a good thing. It's a good thing for people. And I know we've had these challenges as well when we are dealing with questions like terrorism, even here. And there's a temptation to step outside the law. That temptation is very tenuous. Yeah, you get into that territory. Or Mali, for example, which I think, to my memory, has had 2-3 coups d'etat. You step into that territory. It's a slippery rope. You can never get back. You can never get back.
Indeed. So let's get into our conversation on fighting fakes. And this is about having authentic stories and real stories being told out there, real stories being consumed by people. We have seen this whole proliferation of fake news, people who are deliberately misinforming people who are just sharing news that they believe to be real, but it turns out that it's not the fact. And then people who are striving to actually tell out the story as it is. And that whole thing is, ending up with consumers who don't know. So who do I trust? Is it you? Is it the other? You made a mistake yesterday. Why should I trust you today? As a journalist and where you sit, knowing you've even taught journalism and, the whole journey of telling a story, and before you even tell the story, the steps that you should be taking, what do you see when you see this kind of fake news all over?
To be honest, it's not new. Propaganda, disinformation, misinformation is as old as mankind. So the production of fakes, disinformation, misinformation is really very old and has been weaponized. It's obviously like more in our faces now because of technology, because the dispersal methods since the Gutenberg press have obviously improved. Yeah, they have improved significantly. And so the risk, therefore, of a rumor or a hoax or disinformation then being spread and becoming, to use modern words, viral is very high. And so you find that the potential then to even generate violence is that much more there. Because trusted sources of information have always been sort of rare and hard because it's you need to verify, you need to check, you need authority, and that's harder. But then fakes, disinformation, hoaxes, what they do, and this is the most disingenuous thing I think about the whole enterprise, is that they mimic authoritative sources of information. Yeah, so they don't just come and give you something out of the blue. Obviously, there's always the occasional, but they always try and mimic. So you will see that, I think if you check online, you will see there have been instances when respectable publications like, say, The Standard, you find a front page. You find a front page that the editor has never seen because it's been created in somebody else's mind. Yeah. But because they want the authority that comes with being mainstream, then, you find the Standard's banner, and then the headline that somebody has imagined or would like to create. And so, we are always in this battle. And I think the way you deal with it is you create more media literacy, which is to have people realize that they are always consuming information, whether they like journalists or not, whether they like media or not, that they are always, they are always consuming information, and they have to make a pact about how they are going to consume that information, where it's going to come from. Growing up, many of us didn't like injections. We looked like nurses, but you got to deal with the reality that you have to be immunized and you have to be treated. So, yeah.
I see a worrying trend with this, though, Kwamchetsi, is that, and just work with me here. So there is the proliferation of fake news and fake items of information. There are also those who are aware that this fake news is out there, or that there will be somebody who will do a fake banner or fake video. And so if the truth should actually come out, they will now peg it as fake news, knowing very well that this has historically been done. Where do you lie on that? Because some people will say this could actually come out and it was true, but for whatever reasons, optics, PR, etc., I will now label it as fake to dissuade people from believing in that. So we've gone off on the total on a different end here, because people are using the belief against the very same thing.
So there's fake labeling of the truth as fake.
Exactly.
Do you're right. And you know why? It's because there's somebody, I think, who called this the information age. In the information age, you don't fight with spears and arrows and guns, and you use information. You weaponize information. Information becomes a weapon. So in the contest for power and influence, information, then who controls and who has information is the powerful person. And so then some people have decided that the way they are going to change the power arrangement in the power matrix is that they are going to deploy information, disinformation, or the labeling, as you rightly call it, the labeling of information as fake, to sort of to deepen, if you like, to deepen stereotypes. Yeah, because that's really that what we are working with is that people have their inherent stereotypes and fears, and the emotions, and those are the things that people are using information to play on. I think for me, as sort of somebody who pretends to be an intellectual on Saturday, on Sunday I farm, yeah. So as a pretender to intellectualism at the weekend, one of the things that I think disturbs me is that we are focusing more, the more information we have, the less we are using our heads to process that information, and now we're using our emotions. So there's a lot of appeal to emotional violence rather than to logical intellectual processing. I don't know if it's the nature of the society that we're producing, but there are a lot of conversations about how I feel and how you feel rather than what you think.
Yep.
But consider also, the moment the word fake has been absorbed and has become almost as an apostrophe to everything that we say, and it's even used colloquially, then this is where I get confused sometimes. When somebody offers an alternate perspective, it can be labeled as fake, depending on who is consuming it or doesn't want to consume it. So how then does one differentiate? Because when someone doesn't like what you do, colloquially speaking, they'll say, and we say it in Swahili, uko fake. So now, the meaning that is carried in that normal use of the word fake is carried on to the consumption of this media product that we call news. So, I find myself at crossroads very many times when it comes to
How can you tell the real fake?
Yeah.
When everything is just being labeled as fake.
Yes.
fake,
You have to accept the leadership of Donald Trump on this, unfortunately as it is, because one of the things that a fake initially was a fake was very close to a hoax. The things that when I was in the newsroom we used to do on April Fools, give you something, just for purposes of entertainment, and Donald Trump weaponized that term to mean a dismissal. A dismissal of information that you don't agree with, right? And now I think it has entered the lexicon, it has entered the discourses, just the way I think, to use a Kiswahili example, we adopted hayati to mean marehemu. If you go to Tanzania, I saw them using it recently with the John Pombe Magufuli, but hayati actually comes from the proverb, si hayati, si mamati. Mamati is a corpse. Hayati means you are in full health
You're
and
alive.
hearty. So because of the fear of saying that President Kenyatta had died, people were in such awe of him. So they were like, Taya Kenya imezima, and then they didn't want to say marehemu, say he is still living. So that's why they called him Hayati Mzee Jomo Kenyatta. And now, when I checked my kamusi recently, I found that actually Hayati is the second meaning of somebody who was, the second meaning of Hayati is somebody who is dead. Yeah.
So now, see, Hayati Simamati now it's a dead proverb.
Yeah, it's a dead proverb. So the same way, fake was something else. Fake was something else. But the experience of having Donald Trump as the most powerful man in the world for 4 years, and his deployment of that term to mean things that you disagree with or you want to be dismissive of has completely given a new meaning to the term fake. And so people are also like using it now to delegitimize to delegitimize genuine factual information. It's just something that, we must deal with, and I don't think that the nomenclature at this point is going to be important. How we name it might not be as important as
Reminds me that before the digital age, when politicians would want to dismiss a report that's been published in the papers, they would come out and say, it's a creation of
the media.
It's a creation of the media. And basically they're saying, this is not true at all, ignore it, it's a creation of the media, and the people would go with that. Indeed, this is fake news. It's a creation of the media.
Perfectly. It's also part of that culture of delegitimizing media. And so that's why I was saying that thing, the deal that you have to make with the nurse or the doctor. Say, I don't like, because believe you me, I've been a journalist and I've also been with the other end. Journalists are not nice people. They ask very uncomfortable questions. They probe into things that, you want
intrusive questions.
Yeah, you want them to keep to their lane, and sometimes they don't. And so because of that, they are generally trained to be very unpleasant. They can be very unpleasant. At least those ones who are effective, they can be extremely unpleasant. Unfortunately, that is the nature of the job. For them to be able to do their job, they have to be unpleasant. And so because of that unpleasantness, it's very easy to spark an emotional reaction against media and against journalists and say, these guys just, they were born on the roadside. Conceived on the roadside. My mother turns in her grave.
Let's take a break at this point. 7:30. The conversation today is on the fighting fakes. What is fake? How do you identify the real fake from the fake? With us in the studio is journalist Komchatsi Makoha. We are live on SpiceFM and online. We'll be back shortly. Good morning.
24/7 around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM.
Losing a loved one is never easy. The lingering memories, the what-ifs, but in all the gloom, we find ways of celebrating them. And here at the Standard Tributes, we aim to give your loved ones that befitting send-off. Visit www.standardmedia.co.ke/tributes today and post your loved one's tribute. In addition, get access to funeral services from our trusted vendors. The Standard Tributes, keeping memories alive.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah.
You're listening to Spice FM. 24/7 around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM.
Exciting soccer action from the round of 25 of the Bet King Premier League as the race for the championship continues. This week Friday, FC Leopards vs Bandari. On Saturday, Kakamega Homeboys vs Matare. And on Sunday, KCB meets Tusker FC. All the games will be played at 3:15 p.m. Catch these exciting matches on BTV, Channel 172 on aerial decoder and 463 on satellite. Get connected to Star Times for only 999 shillings on aerial decoder or 2,699 shillings on satellite. Star Times, the home of the Bet King Premier League.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
All right, so we're looking at light rain in parts of Nairobi at 14, highs of 18 and lows of 12. 13 will be the low in Nyeri. It's raining at some parts, highs of 18. 21 will be the high, rain showers in Nakuru at 14. 13 degrees and mostly cloudy in Eldoret, highs of 21 and lows of 12. 26 will be the high in Kisumu. It's raining at 18. It's also raining at 18 in Kakamega, highs of 24 and lows of 14. Light rain at 23 in Mombasa, highs of 28. 27 will be the high in a mostly sunny Malindi right now. 19 degrees and mostly sunny in Kampala, highs of 25. 22 will be the low. What it is right now, sunny conditions in Dar es Salaam. At 5, we'll see that being the low in Johannesburg. 9 degrees and clear, going to highs of 19. 28 will be the high in a rainy Lagos at 25, and clear conditions in Kinshasa at 20. It'll go to highs of 30 and lows of 21.
Spice and everything nice. All right. Spice FM.
Spice up your life.
Okay, Yes, a little bit of traffic on Mombasa Road. It's actually not too crazy. Where it is looking kind of crazy is Kiambu Road, piled up some getting to the Muthaiga Square. But I don't think we're seeing any drama today except for the really low clouds heading out of Kikuyu, Kimende, Limuru in that general direction going out west of Nairobi. That is probably going to cause vehicles to slow down some because the visibility is still rather poor. Outer Ring, North Airport Road in that direction also slowing down traffic. Jogo Road coming out towards Landis as well. The bypasses, however, are behaving very well this morning. Talk to us if you should get stuck. SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Text on 40127.
Are you ready? Okay.
Spice FM. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right.
It's 24 minutes.
94.4.
Conversation continues in the Situation Room with you this morning. This hour is Eric Latif, Nduoko, Seti Muga, and journalist Komchatsi Makoha. Tackling the fighting fakes conversation. Well, we've heard this and many times, in fact, and Komchatsi, you've done very well to actually point us into that direction of the tenure of President Donald Trump when labeling of information that one doesn't feel they want to come out or one doesn't agree with is just done. This is fake. You want to dismiss information, you call it fake. Now, for you as a consumer of news, you're then left at a point where you need to start verifying, is this actual a real fake or is it a fake?
Right.
How do you identify the fakes now? For example, this week we saw the sharing of a video on social media of, this appears to be Globe Cinema, right? Roundabout. And there's a traffic police officer who's on the phone. There is what appears to be a dash cam on a vehicle that's been stopped by the police and as others are passing. And then a group of people on a motorbike come and they appear to be snatching a mobile phone from the traffic policeman. It was shared on social media and it was a big concern. The National Police Service released a statement via Twitter, said, our investigations have revealed that a video circulating on social media insinuating to be of a police officer being snatched of a phone is a manipulated video whose intention is malicious. We urge members of the public to ignore it. Now, here you are, you've looked at the video. There's nothing about that video that, triggered your mind to think that this could be fake. And then here are police telling you, we've investigated and this is fake. How do you know whether it's a fake or
but
real
most
fake?
Significant, if you look carefully, did they actually snatch that phone?
I don't know. Look carefully.
Look carefully. Did they
There
actually
you go.
snatch the phone?
One, he's talking.
They attempted to, but was the phone actually snatched?
Phone is white. The video.
The phone is on the left hand of the police officer. It still is, even after the snatching attempt.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think... Yeah.
So are the police saying that this did not happen, or are they saying that the phone was not snatched?
Yes, yeah,
I think there are two unfortunate turns of events in terms of even public communication. One, and I think we were talking about this earlier, which is that disinformation, misinformation tends to play very close to reality. So one of the things that has actually happened, and I've witnessed this, I think, about 2 times in the past 1 week, which is that there has been a rising, this spate of people on motorcycles snatching communication gadgets from people. It's almost an epidemic in Nairobi.
Yes.
The police has not responded formally to that. Let's start there, and I like doing normative frameworks.
I think they did. There was a story
in a normal society. The police would. I know. Yes, the IG said that they were doing something about it, but in a normal
the regional commander said that he's deploying more officers, including GSU, onto the streets of Nairobi to address this concern by the public.
Issue,
Right. So somebody, whether this is true or not, it escalated that conversation.
Yep.
It escalated that conversation to basically say even police officers are
not being
vulnerable.
spared.
Right? That even police officers are vulnerable. So I think I would start from the public communication point of view, which is that in terms of it's not that a traffic police, this is something so egregious about snatching a mobile phone from a traffic police officers. As you know, our tradition is that we do not arm our traffic officers.
Right.
And we've actually even seen incidents in the past, very regrettable, of motorists having physical altercations with police officers who are doing traffic duty.
Yes.
So one of the things I think we all just must come back to is that it's not really a crisis that I think would have required this sort of reaction from the DCI.
Unless, conscious, maybe you can look at it in this way, unless these measures that you're talking about, number one, that crime has actually gotten so bad and no attention is being paid to it, and that even a police officer then can be robbed, right?
Yes.
Or that it has gotten so bad that these criminals can even go and rob a police officer and still nothing is being done about it. Could it be then that labeling this as fake is to kind of quench the message or to reduce the pressure on the police to do something about the state of security in the city?
I was coming to the second point.
Okay.
And the second point is, if this is fake news, the logical, proper, programmatic way to approach it for the police and the DCI, who have, I think, one of the finest cybercrime units. When I was working for the Standard, they summoned me and questioned me for a very long time. And they have very intelligent officers working there. The first thing they would have done was bring a person who is responsible for this and charged him in court. That's what police officers do. They don't issue press statements and Twitter denials. For me, that's the part that is disappointing for me. That the DCI, which has
bring the actual video that has been manipulated. Say,
I
this is the original video, and this is the person whose vehicle this dash cam is on.
But Eric, I actually would start from that point where we were all being pressurized into, let's pass the Cyber Crimes Act. It's law. Yeah. So one of the things that I would actually expect, and I'm going somewhere with this, one of the things I would expect the police to do is to enter this space of fake information or disinformation and use the law that we have passed to deal with it. Now, because the police and the state are also suspected to be participants in the creation of disinformation, they have been very reluctant to go into these spaces. So because of that, for example, you probably remember from the tenure of the former Chief Justice David Maraga, there were several so-called not genuine letters coming from the office of the Chief Justice. There have been a whole slew of videos attacking the judiciary. There have been other videos and other information that, attacks, they could pick up on City Muga or somebody else tomorrow and completely defame him and do other things to him. And the police, whose job it is to investigate, has decided that this is not a crime. So although this is regrettable, if it is fake news, it is regrettable. My bigger regret is that the police are not approaching this professionally.
Okay. Wamchatsi, what about, if you're now living on the assumption that it is fake news, then we might have a situation whereby somebody is creating something to elicit a response. Because, and never to give any justification for anybody doing anything wrong, as it were, but if somebody's trying to pass a message, or if somebody's trying to say something about the state of affairs and creates this thing to get attention, it seems like it has worked.
Absolutely. And marketing is a little different from journalism. So one of the things that I think people would do sometimes is in the days before they banned those creams, is that they would look at people who have a lot of melanin like myself and tell you, if you use this cream for 2 weeks, you're going to be lighter. And because they are speaking to an anxiety, they're speaking to a very existing anxiety. So people will always, I think, we can't run away from the possibility that people will employ lies, disinformation, to try and gain influence. There are even people who try to get jobs with the certificates that are not genuine. So I think it's genuine nature, it's human nature. So I don't think that we can entirely eradicate, but I think we can put controls. And one of the controls is to make sure that people who do that, especially like in this particular instance, people who use these kinds of tactics, and we have a legal framework for dealing with them, can we at least see if that the lengths to which that legal framework works? Now, when we look at it, is the converse is true, which is that the time when the Cyber Crimes Act is being used is deployed against young people who are using cyberspace to have to air their views, and they are being harassed because they've called either my deputy president or the leader of the opposition or the president one name too many. And really, this in my view, I think should call for a change in focus. A change in focus, because disinformation is a danger.
It's true. I look at it, though, from the other angle, and I see what you're saying with the police. Police should have taken action in this particular video, for instance, and said, this is the person who's responsible for spreading or for creating this malicious video, as they call it. But then start from they have got to win the trust of the people. Many people who saw the tweet by the police would have thought, what do you mean? Come on, police. Just because it's one of your own, now you're trying to come and tell us that this is fake. I think start from proving that this is actually fake. Show us this is the original clip. It was filmed by so-and-so who is in this vehicle, and this is the original clip, and then you can see this is where the fake happens. It also goes into informing and creating that media literacy that you're talking about, how to identify the fake news. If indeed they have serious investigators who went through this video in a couple of hours and they were able to tell that this is a fake video, show us. Train us, teach us that this is fake, so we can know. And then say the people who are responsible, we shall take them to court and we shall present our evidence in court. We have seen police officers, state machinery arresting people on the issue of fake news, of spreading malicious information, using misuse of whatever they call it, misuse of electronic gadgets. Dennis Itumbi, for example, has several cases in court, ongoing, on the same. Other bloggers have cases in court, they've been taken to court, on the same. But what's the role of the police, the information department of the police, in now making people know this is how you can identify fake news? I think they have a role to play there.
But you know what's also tricky? If something qualifies to be referred to as a blatant and obvious untruth, then it isn't difficult to dismiss it. But a lot of what now qualifies as what we're referring to as fake news, there is a very sizable dollop of truth in it. But just one little sliver. The slightest. And that is what changes the whole thing. Now, so it becomes very, very difficult for someone, even if you wanted to convince someone it isn't true, they'll focus on the bit that is believable and which can actually be proved. So that last bit, they'll say, no. If this is true, then this also must be true. This also must be true.
And you're right. And I think about my experiences sometimes with doing public communication. And it comes also with the reputation that you have. For example, our police service, I think they probably do a decent job. Unfortunately, and they are very anxious to get into the public space and to be loved and to be liked. My prediction is that that's not going to happen in my lifetime. Because just historically, really, our police service was not set up as a service right from colonial time. So they have a burden of history. And Shoyinka is the one who famously said, a tiger does not proclaim its tigritude. The police spend a lot of time telling us how good they are. They could actually do a better job. Good. Yeah, if they were just good. In this particular instance, just do half of what Eric is saying and half of what I'm saying, it will be done. Yeah, it's finished. They don't have to their Twitter person seems to be very busy, and by there I think they have a very talented person there, very creative.
DCI.
Yeah, he's a writer.
Yes.
If I was
He's a
still
storyteller.
if I was still in my publishing days, I would seek him out and say, how do we do a novel out of it? He's really a very gifted writer. Yeah. But be that as it may, I think that's probably the wrong front to deploy all their effort. They could just, for example, just show up, even if it's a half-hearted attempt. And of course, I'm reminded recently when the KTN reporter, Purity Mwambia, did her story on the trade in guns and so on. And the DCI director, came out guns blazing and spent 2 hours lecturing us about, how guns are done and so on and so forth, basically to discredit. So there's a whole industry of discrediting information. And I think we need to, and I think if you also look at the public emotional temperatures, you realize that that one Purity Mwambia 76, DCI 24. Right? So please, Pareto principle, don't spend 80% of your energy doing something that gives you only 20%. Right. Reverse. Do 20% that gives you 80%.
You know what you're fighting against here is the tyranny of habit.
Yeah, true.
Yes.
Yeah.
When and it's even worse for individuals, institutions, or people within institutions that will actually have real power. And the police force, the police service have real power. And it's backed by the law. Remember, they are implementers of it. So it's real power. Now, when that real power is in your hands, the things it can do to you, forget what it can do for you, okay? This is what we're always battling with, okay? Because, and that is why the relationship with the general public and our police service is where it's at. Because someone feels you are given this power to actually assist me. But you're doing the complete opposite with this power, which I, as an individual, know I have actually given to you. Yes.
Well, as we continue, let's just give due accreditation. Yes, Purity Mwambia formerly worked at KTN. That story she did at Citizen.
Okay. Thank you.
It's a slip, obviously. As we look at public institutions and the relationship with the public, as somebody who has also worked in public, you are a communication advisor for the CJ, the former.
Yes,
former CJ. You are then inundated with all these questions and reports that appear, and you can see the slant of this story is giving a different impression from actually what has happened. And I'm sure there are very many instances where you face that. There's a story that has been published, there's a story that has been told on radio, on TV, and you can see the overall output of the story is giving a different impression from what actually happened. Now, how do you deal with that as a public officer? How does a public institution or any even private institution address that? Because they want to come and dismiss. They want to come and say, no, this is not the case. This is the actual case. But the public has already been conditioned by the media to take a story from the one angle.
Two ways is to engage. I remember an incident when the former Chief Justice visited New York, and there was a report in one newspaper, one major newspaper, not the Standard, that said he had apologized for the decision of the Supreme Court in the 2013 presidential election. I was not in New York myself, but I was quite astounded because I did not think that was in the character of Dr. Willie Mutunga to make that kind of remark. The conversations I had had with him after they had made that decision were to the complete contrary of what was published. And it was, mainline. It was a mainline news story running. So I engaged with the editor, who was obviously very defensive. Because I think we have a tradition in journalism that says, I stand by the story.
Yes.
Right?
That's
so
the first
we like
reaction.
to stand by the story, the first reaction. But when we did engage with the editor, we were able to demonstrate, one, that the meeting where the the former Chief Justice is supposed to have made this remark was actually not attended by anybody else except then Ambassador Elkanah Odembo, and he had not spoken to this journalist. The judge whom Justice Mutunga was meeting had not spoken to the journalist. Justice Mutunga had not reached out or met with any journalist. There was no picture of that meeting. In fact, this reporter was reporting from Delaware, which is to the west of the country, and this meeting was in New York, which is a leap of the imagination. So it was a very lengthy process, and there were a lot of frayed nerves, and I can say that words were exchanged, even though these are very, very close. These are very close colleagues.
Yes.
But ultimately, it was resolved because we were able to demonstrate that, look, in this particular era, I know that you have a tradition of telling the truth, but in this particular instance, you've made a mistake. So because we were just having this conversation, it's sort of like we were able to settle that. It's very difficult, especially, and City was mentioning this, when you're in the position of power, especially when it comes to questions of information, your posture is everything. If you are going to posture and start saying, we want you arraigned before the Supreme Court on contempt charges, then that escalates it. It escalates it completely to a completely wrong level. So one way is actually to engage. The second is actually to put out information that is correct. Similar instance again when I was working there was, we had the very, very unfortunate Garissa attack, and 152 young souls perished in that attack. And the president made a decision to say the recruitment of police officers that had been suspended by dint of a court order, he had lifted that, and he wanted them to report to Kiganjo on Monday morning. This was over the weekend. And this is a very, very difficult and intense situation. And when everybody was saying, you need to issue a statement condemning the president and doing all sorts of things, I was really agonizing, because the posture at that moment was the balance of power was with the judiciary. And so the bigger person, the judiciary needed to be the bigger institution. And it was. And so because of just reaching out and explaining that actually you can't do that, when you do that, that's illegal. You do illegal things, it will be very difficult for police officers to come to court and get an audience, even at the magistrates. And I think somebody was able to understand that. And so they walked back from it. So one of it is just to understanding where you are within that power matrix.
It's engaging. But, you get to a point where a story is out, has been published, and then you're not even a public institution, even a private company, but it is completely damaging. Or an individual. It's completely damaging to your reputation, to your business. And you want to reach out, and the editor first tells you, we stand by our story, my friend, and they bang the phone on you. What do you do next? And here you are, you release a statement saying, okay, what has been reported in the media, we want to state that this is the actual information. And you're basically being played against the media, which is the most trusted when it comes to information.
There are avenues for recourse. And even though I am not one of the greatest fans of the Media Council of Kenya Act, there is actually a media council. There is a media council, and it works.
Yes.
It works because people have gone there and they have gotten justice. I remember former First Lady Lucy Kibaki had an issue with the media that she felt very, very strongly about, and ultimately lodged a complaint to the media council. And through mediation and discussion, they were actually able to come to an amicable settlement. There are other instances where the Media Council has actually slapped media organizations, some of which I know and have worked for, with very, very punitive, very heavy, if you like, sanctions. And that is as it should be, because media is not a law unto itself. media works within an ecosystem where there are rules of engagement, and if they make a mistake, there are consequences. All of us, one of the things I think, even I, who is slightly out of practice, when I occasionally write or go into spaces like this, the thing that is always ringing at the back of my mind is the code of ethics for the practice of journalism.
Right.
Indeed.
And if you don't adhere to those codes, then there are sanctions, and those sanctions sometimes can be, by the time you are recovering. I remember an incident, I think, when one of our colleagues lost their job and their earning and so on. By the time you are recovering from adverse action like that, the loss is incalculable. So you'd rather just not make the risk. So if it's possible to make amends, I think people are generally reasonable.
Komchetsi, we thank you very much for coming this morning. Come again soon.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. The time has flown by.
Very true.
It always does that when you're having a good conversation. Thank you for tuning in to the Situation Room this hour. Join us in the next hour. This conversation happens until 10 a.m. because this is Kenya's biggest conversation on SpiceFM and online. Good morning. It's now 8 a.m.
Spice up your life.
This is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto. 1,136 COVID-19 patients are currently admitted in various health facilities, while 4,825 patients are under home-based isolation and care program. Our total recoveries have hit 176,456 after 1,934 patients recovered in the last 24 hours. At the same time, Kenya's total coronavirus death toll has hit 3,716 after 11 new deaths were recorded. As the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission continues to find suitable persons who will fill the positions of commissioners, Kenyans are being advised to obtain their national identity cards and register as voters. NDB's MP Robert Pokose is asking Kenyans to register as voters so that they can participate in the 2022 general elections, which is their constitutional right, further saying BBI cannot see the light of day.
Nafikiri mambo ya PPI watu wasahau hiyo ilikwisha, rege ilisimama. Kwa hivyo tunaelekea elections ya 2022 na kila watu wajipange. Kwa hivyo nataka kuhimiza watu wetu wale the hustler team, please, kama kuna wale wajechukua kura, mwende mjiandikishe kura kwa ofisi ya IBC. Sisi tuweze kuwekwa katika register ya IBC. Tujitayarishe kwa uchaguzi wa mwaka ujao.
As names are being fronted for those who will replace Trans Nzoia Governor Party Haemba, among them Rift Valley County Commissioner George Natembeya, and Ndebele's constituency is asking him to visit the village for coronation before embarking on its political journey. Residents including Walter Simiyu and Patiko Muhunga said Natembeya has experience and a track record of good service.
Shirikishi wetu Commissioner Mr. Natembeya, yeye anazaliwa area hii na Beki. Kabla siasa ijaanza akaweze kuingia, tukaweze kuzindua mala hapa. Kama sisi Waluhya wanasema kishika chinyimba, mpaka lazima ukuje nyumbani, wazee wakaweza kutemea mate. Kianza sasa kuitoka uwe umetoka ukiwa nyumbani.
Natembeya sisi wazee tutamtemea mate, mtoto wetu tutampariki na kura atapita papa.
Women across the country have been encouraged to vie for various political positions as we approach the 2022 general elections. Ainabkoi constituency candidate Terry Maina says women can be elected if they have good policies that will attract and benefit voters.
Hata ingawa watu wanasema mambo ambayo tunajua sio ya kweli, yasitulete tukufe moyo na tukatae kusimama ama kujitolea kusaidia jamii yetu. Ile kitu iko ni ya kwamba lazima ukumbuke ya kwamba umesimama kwa sababu unataka kuwa mtu wa kusaidia jamii. Na hiyo tu ndio kitu ningesema. Usiwe na ni mtu wa kusikiliza mambo mengi ambayo watu wanasema.
And finally, President Uhuru Kenyatta is this morning expected to tour the Ukambani region. We will be bringing you this story as it unfolds throughout the day. This is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto.
.5 Spice FM, Kisumu.
It actually is not too bad this morning. Getting off Mombasa Road, we saw a little bit right around Mlolongo at the weighbridge. A number of trucks trying to get in and get their business done this morning, and so that slows traffic down considerably, but not too crazy as you approach General Motors. Headed out on Mombasa Road towards the southern bypass, and then out towards Langata. That looks all right. The bypass is offering good options this morning. Coming off of Thika Road, joining with Kiambu Road, Muthaiga Square, there, underpass at Pangani, and then out towards the Glow Cinema overpass. Not too much of an issue there at all. Ngara, a little bit there. Coming off Limuru Road, also some traffic outbound. We still have that low fog situation, so please be careful. Let's see what traffic looks like in a short while, but for now, I think it's a good Friday in terms of traffic. SpiceFMKE on Twitter is how you can get in touch. Text on 40127. Let's keep things moving this Friday morning.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
It is 5 minutes after 8. A very good morning to you. If you're tuning in and joining us now, welcome to Kenya's biggest conversation, The Situation Room. This is the third hour of the show. We begin from 6 a.m. and we go all the way to 10 a.m. Talk, and more talk. The only talk radio in the morning in Kenya and indeed in East Africa. Good morning. It's the 9th day of July 2021. We are live on SpiceFM. We live stream the show online. And for the next 1 hour, we are also live on KTN Home. C.T. Muga, today's proverb.
The beak of a bird is what tells you what it eats.
The beak of a bird is what tells you what it eats.
Mm-hmm.
Kama ni ugali, haijapanguza, utaona ugali. Kama imekula sukuma, utaona kwa meno.
Okay.
And if it drinks, how will you know what it has drunk?
See, that's a different proverb. This one is about eats.
Okay. Okay, the beak of a bird.
Being facetious.
No, being truthful.
Yeah, being truthful.
Mm-hmm.
Let's have a conversation about leadership in this country. A conversation about the kind of politics that we want to have in the country. A conversation about the leaders that we'd like to see in the country. And whether we as Kenyans are ready to think and act different. One of our listeners, Ruben Kigame, has been on this show before. He has participated by calling into the show and contributing to the conversation that we have. And recently, this week, he went public and made a public declaration that he would like to be elected as the 5th President of the Republic of Kenya. Ruben Kigame is now with us in the studio. Good morning, Ruben.
Good morning, Eric. Good morning, Du. Good morning, CT.
Good morning, Ruben.
Good morning, Ruben.
It's good to see you. Welcome to the Situation Room.
I don't know what makes a morning good. It's so chilly out there.
The person sitting on your immediate left loves this weather. So for them...
She loves it inside here.
No. She loves it outside. Her body agrees with this weather. So if you ask her, she'll tell you it's not just a good morning. It's a wonderful, lovely morning.
Splendid even.
It's a gender thing then.
You think?
She's the odd one out.
As I usually am.
We take a vote.
Yes. She's the minority. She will be heard, but she'll not have her way.
Unfortunately.
Well, it's nice to be here. Absolutely nice to be back.
Good to have you here, Ruben. You have decided that you'd like to throw your hat in the ring for the presidential race.
I've been deciding for a while. It just came out, the last few months, and then I officialized it 2 days ago. But it's a conversation I've been having with my friends for the longest of times. Specifically with the whole area of presidency, probably the last 3 years. Whatever happened in 2017 shook me to the core. Well, 2017, maybe let's take it back another 10 years before 2017. And I was shaken even more. But it's become a habit in our society that every 5 years, something spectacular happens. And we always seem shocked at what happened and happens until we realize it's a cycle. And the common culprit is always elections. That's when tensions are high. That's when people are killed for reasons you cannot explain. That's when our journalists come up with all these things about tyranny of numbers and who will merge with who to form the next government. But as a country, we forget we've been at this for the longest of times. 58 years down the line, and we're still talking about the same things, trying to solve the same things. At independence, we were told it's poverty, ignorance, and disease. Those were supposed to be our three enemies. We've been added a fourth one, but we don't talk about very much. That's corruption and impunity. But the talk is the same, right from when our forefathers expected a better government to this particular day. So every 5 years, something happens, and we hope for the best, and nothing happens. Now, I think it's very clear, and a lot of our listeners would know, that if you keep doing the same thing, the same way, expecting different results, you're going to be very disappointed. You'll be shocked. And so I've been thinking through this for a while. I've written, I have, made videos on my YouTube channel. I have written open letters. I have done what it can as an advocate for social justice and a better government, a better Kenya. And, nothing seemed to move very much. Then I realized one thing, that we are all looking and we are all expecting, we're all hoping that some Messiah somewhere will come, somebody somewhere will come and step into the space and articulate, the voices of those who are on the other end of tiredness. But we've waited too long. Actually, to be honest with you, my friends and I were expecting that a gentleman or lady would step out as early as last year when this BBI nonsense became really nonsensical and articulate the real issues. We have a pandemic, we have hunger, we have job losses, and, everybody was talking about BBI. So we had three, as our society pretty much split into three. You have the right, with everybody talking about BBI and, politics and the noise of the day. Then you had the middle with someone like the deputy president, in government and half out, half in. And then you have the Wanjikus, the Anyangos, on the left, on their own, listening out who will articulate, who will speak, who will move in and, draw the discourse to where it needs to be. We waited. And to be honest, one particular gentleman was being waited for, and he didn't step out. My friends told me, it's your turn.
You're next in line.
If it's not him, it's you. So, Benny, but I've been getting to this for a while. Actually, gentlemen and lady, not every one of us has to jump into that space. But the fellows that are jumping into that space scare me. And they scare many Kenyans because they are the same people that have brought us to where we are. And so we figured out, you know what? If you really want to know about the water, don't ask the fish. I think the Chinese say that. So we're not going to expect anything different from those who are in government or have been. We decided, you know, my friends and I, and a good constituency of tired Kenyans, that we were going to give an alternative voice. That is all we need. And I can't tell you enough of what I've seen, especially in my social media platforms. People saying, I had decided I would never vote again. I had thrown away my voter's card. I mean, I was not interested anymore. But thank you for giving me an alternative. So if I'm not going to do anything else in the next election, you can be sure I'm going to be giving Kenyans another alternative, a different way of looking at leadership. I come in not so much with the money and pomp and noise. I come in with what I believe Kenyans are looking for, and that is a value-based servant leadership.
We will get into the details of that, so you can tell us exactly what you represent. You're saying you represent the alternative for Kenya come 2022.
Hopefully. I believe I do.
You represent something different from what we've been having for a while.
Yes.
Ruben, your journey in politics did not just begin with this particular declaration. In 2013, you threw your hat in the ring to be elected as governor in Vihiga.
True.
And you were not elected.
No. And
now,
they say that I lost. I tell them you are the ones who lost. But that, you know, is something we can discuss.
Point is, you did not win. You did not garner enough votes in Vihiga to become governor of Vihiga.
True. The winner takes it all.
And then here you are now. You're casting your net wider in presidency. Don't you think you should look back and ask yourself, so what happened in Vihiga?
But what makes you think he hasn't done that?
That's what I want to hear.
So let's take it a little further back, because I think it helps for people to know who Reuben Kigame is. The optics tell most citizens that hear Reuben Kigame that I'm Rwandese. Or, you know, someone from Tanzania, as my friends would say. Well, I'm born and bred here. And I need to put out a point, and I hope it becomes a significant place of discussion. So born in Vihiga, grew up in Kisumu, went to school in Thika, married a Kikuyu wife, and now live in Uasin Gishu. I hope that becomes a point of reference when we talk about national unity and integration. But Reuben Kigame's journey into what I'm doing now starts way back when I was 17. And these are the things that you will not be told. At 17 years, I read a book that revolutionized my life. It was called, I think it's still called, Luther the Reformer. You're talking about Martin Luther, who shook off the system, you know, from what it was, really brought a new way of looking at church and leadership. And that book gave me two things. One, that you could actually stand up against a system and succeed. But secondly, it showed me that people of faith could actually aspire to be, you know, as learned and schooled as possible, because he became a good professor at the university. So the combination of learning and advocacy started with me that far back. And so by the time I'm at Kenyatta University and Alexander Muge is killed and Robert Ouko is murdered, as students we are demonstrating, but for me, I'm demonstrating with a little bit more poise because I'm living something that I have been from 17. At that time, it was very, very hard to have an alternative voice. If you remember Weekly Review, and Hillary just passed on, I think. If you remember Beyond magazine by Bidan Bugwa, I couldn't even display those magazines in my room. So I hid them in the middle of clothes in my wardrobe, because if President Moi, was given a hint that Reuben Kigame was reading these things and so on, of course, they would come for you. Not to mention, I was taking history, philosophy, and religious studies, and I did a lot of term papers. One time I did a big paper that critiqued the Nyayo philosophy. Well, I've always got my papers back. That one I never got back. I wrote a small book when I was at the university, intending to publish Communism and the Christian Faith, just looking at a couple of things about the graduation of socialism into communism and how socialism borrows heavily from the Christian faith and all that. So, intending to publish, the book just disappeared, never to be seen from my room. I wrote another novel called No Guilt, No Innocence, describing the journey of someone living with disability in a system that is both corrupt and politically charged. So he doesn't have a voice. That too disappeared. And you know what it used to be to produce any manuscript those days? You had to type on your manual typewriter, and photocopying was an issue. So anyway, I go back then to attempts to speak to the system and articulate issues beyond, the spaces that I was allowed to have those days. So anyway, when the multi-party democracy talks and movement in general came around, guess what? I was right in the midst of it. I got excited about, Orengo and Matiba and the rest that in 1990 went to start us off with the multi-party, the Saba thing. And I share all this because even my own declaration 2 days ago was very specifically chosen because I wanted it to fall on Saba Day. And in solidarity with the second liberation, it was not to be because it was also outlawed and scuttled. So we are headed to Chester House to make that public declaration, and the police called and said, no, you can't have the declaration today.
Why? Because it was a public gathering?
Well, there are many dynamics on that. So first of all, public gathering needs to be defined. We had 100 invited guests in compliance with COVID-19, social distancing, of course, in the room and everything set, but it was not to be. And that needs to be read against all the rallies that are taking place in the country. With no social distancing, no masks. I can't have my 100 people to declare my presidential bid. They can have their thousands.
You read something into that, definitely. What do you read into that, Reuben?
I read many things. I read hypocrisy. I read disregard for the rule of law. I read certainly double standards. You cannot have political gatherings, but you can have political gatherings if you're.
But Reuben, think about it. Saba.
Yes.
Is it not reminiscent of Saba that what you're describing, an infinitely worse form of it, is what characterized Saba? The actual Saba. Because remember, people were going to Kamkunji grounds, and the idea was to hold a rally rally, in this case, the idea was to talk about the very things that should we say, brought about eventually the second, was it third? Second. Liberation.
Second, yeah.
Yes. Now, what am I saying? I'm saying this, Ruben, that the field that you have entered was fraught with the sort of interference that you have encountered. But in an earlier time, it was also fraught with violence. It wasn't just a stopping and a halting of a process. But I'm going to take it even further back. And I'm going to say this. Everything that you are saying, I could argue, is also not new. Right from the time we got independence, give it just a few years, already there was dissent within the very people who had ushered in independence, and there were disagreements. And the disagreements was in the way this freedom that we had acquired should actually move forward. And the story has replicated itself over and over and over in many, many ways. So if I was to say that you are following a well-trodden path, I would then have to ask the question, what is this thing that you are offering that is actually new?
So CT, there's one major difference between our past and present. In the past, all of what you have described happened with what you had as a very repressive government and a constitution that was very, very hostile to democracy. The difference is that we now have a constitution, our 2010 constitution, with all the privileges and rights of assembly, articulation, never mind the proverb this morning, whatever kind of beak you have. So now we have the space to assemble, to picket. The problem is not us. The problem is that we have come from a system of government that never changes. So the police always imagine that the way to respond to picketing is to tear gas people, it's to beat up people, that you enforce law that way. And yet that is what we fought for. The Constitution actually provides for all these rights. That's the major difference. And I come to the table with that Constitution in mind. So, and we're doing even better because we inform the police, we have the permit, we have everything going. We have social distancing. So why was my declaration stopped?
For whatever reason, right?
So
I want to take you back because
that
I
is
asked
Ruben.
a question.
Yeah. So
And
this is,
you have gone to tell us your
Yes.
history and all.
So I
want to
to
go back to my question.
Yes.
My question is, you have vied for political office before, you did not succeed. You engaged with voters in a constituency called a county before, you did not succeed. This time you want to engage with voters nationally and you want to be elected as president. You know the requirements, 25% support in at least half of the counties, 50% of the votes plus one for you to become the president. What lessons did you learn from 2013, the failed bid to become governor of Vega, that you think have now made you even better and sharper when you launch this presidential campaign?
Fantastic. So if I was to just stick on that question, the first thing is I have learned to lose better. You know, everyone goes into an election wanting to win. And hardly do we all, if you're going through an election for the first time, you always want to win in such a way that you don't learn any lessons. So that was my first lesson, that there is a very good way of losing. And that is lose on the basis of values. Don't lose any other way. So I lost in Vihiga with regard to numbers and with regard to appealing to the appetites of the people. But I gained my values. I came forth out of 6 without bribing, without, mudslinging anyone, by doing clean politics. So I don't regret that I came forth with that kind of record. Secondly, I'm actually not the one who lost. it's the people who lost. Because it takes a lot to be on the ballot, first of all. And you offer your seras, you do everything. So if you're not elected, it's the loss of those particular seras, not the loss of what you stand for. If the people lose, you don't lose. And it's the same thing that my Christian friends have been telling me, learn your lessons from Muiru. He lost. I say, Muiru never lost. You lost. You didn't choose him. But at the end of the day, a prophet is also not quite heard in his own hometown. That is also a factor. So, for example, the way the Vihiga politics are structured is such that they are not just tribal; they are ethnic and clan-based. So, you would need to be able to penetrate that clan politics and realize that, for example, the Banyore were raising 3 different candidates. So you start out with the society itself working against that same clan system. So where we are in 2021 preparing for 2022, I come back to 2013, 2012, and so on, and I ask myself, how many people talked to me and said, Reuben, if I was in Vihiga, I would actually vote for you. If we were voting on the basis of issues, I would vote for you. Now, the kind of issues that we are dealing with as a country now are not county issues. We're dealing with national issues.
Okay.
And so I'm coming onto the platform to offer myself as an alternative voice in the context of national dialogue,
right,
with a constituency that is broader than Vihiga, because many times you'll find that if you localize something, you miss the big picture.
Great.
And I believe that I do have a lot of Kenyans that resonate with where I'm going than Vihiga itself.
Let's take a break on that note. Reuben Kigame is in the studio. Reuben describes himself as a musician, a teacher, a broadcaster, publisher, Pan-Africanist, and he is in the running for next year's presidential ticket. Presidential vote. Reuben Kigame wants to be president next year. So we'll come back into the conversation now, going to the politics of things. What is it that you say that you bring as the alternative voice for 2022? What is it that you hope to achieve if you are elected as president? How different would your presidency be from what we have and have had in the past? And all these conversations. And as we ask you as well, our audience, are Kenyans ready to consider other presidential choices in 2022? Here is one of them. Here is an alternative for 2022. Are Kenyans ready to consider alternative choices come 2022, 8:30? The conversation continues. We are live on SpiceFM, KTN Home, and online. We'll be back shortly. Good morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life. 24/7 around the world, non-stop. This is SpiceFM.
Do your callers frequently ask you what stories made the news headlines? Introducing the Call Bulletin, courtesy of Skiza. You can now keep your callers informed and up to date with the latest news updates from KTN News, courtesy of Skiza. Dial *811 *795# to subscribe today. Set the tone with Skiza.
24/7 around the world, non-stop. This is SpiceFM.
Hello.
Halo, umesikia?
Nimesikia nini?
Hujasikia habari? Hebu acha nikuambie. Kile kimetokea.
Hello? Hello? Hello?
Don't wait for hearsay. Dial *550*2# to read the Nairobian e-paper from the convenience of your mobile phone for only 20 shillings from your Telcom line and stay up to date, the hottest talk of town with no additional charges.
Spice FM.
Hey, it's getting hot in here. The media has greatly contributed to the moral rot that we experience in this country.
I remember a senior politician telling me, point blank, nobody steals in the field, it's stolen in the granary. So my friend, if you're going to win an election, jipange kwa granary.
I think we are suffering from Stockholm syndrome. Our violator and abuser is also our redeemer in our mind.
The whole political class, the whole political institution is rotten. It is based on ideals that...
The weather with Spice FM.
The drizzle continues in most parts of Nairobi at 14, highs of 18 and lows of 12. It's also light rain in Nyeri at 13 with highs of 18 today. 21 will be the high in Nakuru where it's raining at 15. Mostly cloudy conditions in Eldoret at 14, going to highs of 21. 26 will be the high in a rainy Kisumu this morning at 19. Mostly cloudy conditions at 19 in Kakamega with highs of 24. It'll come down to lows of 14. It's raining in parts of Mombasa at 24 with highs of 28. We'll see lows of 23. Mostly cloudy conditions now at 26 in Malindi with highs of 27 and lows of 24. It's sunny in Kampala at 20, it'll go to highs of 25 and lows of 18. Sunny conditions in Dar es Salaam at 23 with highs of 29. 19 degrees will be the high in a sunny Johannesburg currently at 10. It'll drop to lows at 5. And 25 degrees raining in Lagos, highs of 28 and lows of 24. Sunny conditions in Kinshasa at 19. Go to highs of 30, come back down to lows of 21. Okay, outbound west of the city still have some issues there with visibility. So we're looking Limuru, we're looking Kimende and out in that direction. So please be careful. The southern bypass not moving at all. There seems to be an accident up ahead. Folks have been stuck for some time now, and there's a crane ahead, so could be indications of moving something out of the way. We're not quite sure what's the reason there, but all likelihood that there is an accident. So let's keep out an eye out for that. Let us know just exactly what might be the issue so we can inform folks of what's happening there. But there is traffic. It's building up significantly and spilling onto Mombasa Road, going into the City Uhuru Highway, slowly moving through from the Nyeri Stadium roundabout out towards Westlands and inbound as well. Let's keep an eye on things, guys. Help us out here. SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Text on 40127.
Spice and everything nice. Spice FM.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
It's 24 minutes now. Mornings. FM Situation Room continues. In the room with you is Eric Latif, Nduoko, C.T. Muga, and our guest is presidential aspirant Ruben Kigame, musician, teacher, broadcaster, publisher, Pan-Africanist.
So, Ruben, you talked about ideologies, looking at issues on a national level that clearly need to be addressed by whomever will take the top seat, or whomever is currently in the top seat needs to address these issues. Often I've had an issue that these are not at the forefront of anybody who wants to come forward. It usually is an individual or a character involved there. From your point of view, what are some of the issues that somebody sitting in the top seat must address in this country currently?
Well, there are many, and I'm sure that a lot of citizens can enumerate issues that concern them. But because I live with them, I live out there in the country. I travel to the city for business, yes, but I live with the people. And there are some critical things that all of our governments up to this point, but especially this one, have been oblivious to. And I'll break them down in the simplest fashion possible. The first main issue that is plaguing this country is hunger, njaa, food issues. 58 years later, people are hungry. And for us in the city, or those of us that have a job or, something to do, look at that as mere rhetoric. People in Kenya are hungry. As late as yesterday, I get all these inboxes and so on. This is a college graduate writing to me saying, Ruben, please just find me something to do because I'm so hungry I cannot afford a meal. Just anything I will do. And this is not one, this is not two. I mean, just going by who inboxes me, there are many in their 20s, some actually early 30s, desperate for mere food. I think the case is still very fresh for many Kenyans. Last year, when a woman in Kisauni was boiling stones, some kind of placebo feeling for the children, that's this food. Go all the way to girls going into the Pokot forest to look for wild berries. People are hungry. And we really must do something about the food.
You'll tell us what you're going to do.
Yes.
Second issue?
So that's one. Two, corruption and a culture of impunity. Every Kenyan knows something is wrong. We lose, by admission of the president himself, 2 billion per day. And he said that in January. 2 billion per day. 60 billion in a month. So a lot of scandals, a lot of money being lost, and people are mentioned, investigations are done, reports are promised, they never come out. Kemsa is a good example. And, when you catch these people, they'll go on in office like nothing happened. No one is brought to book, and so on. So we need to do something about corruption because it's jumping out of the window. And, the twin, impunity, it's utadu, I'm going to do this. It doesn't matter, I will do it because I'm in power. Now, disobedience to the rule of law, disregard the rule of law. There are two kinds of people in Kenya, those above the law and those within the, precincts of the law.
Are there really people in this country who are above the law?
Oh, yes. I can show you several. For example, you have a law for the rich and the law for the poor. If you steal a chicken, by the way, you'll be taken in. If you steal a few billions in Kemsa, you'll never go in.
So is it that they're above the law, or is it that because of the positions that they have, they can practice the impunity that we see? But the law, in its purest form, doesn't really discriminate, or does it?
You see, the law is just the law. The law is a matter of consensus. We agree, if you get caught, this is what is going to happen. So you get caught. Something happens to me and something doesn't happen to you. That is the bar line where I'm saying, if something doesn't happen to you, this is the law, something doesn't happen to you when it's supposed to happen to you, then that's when we say you're above the law. But the simple thing is this, that court orders, for example, in this country are never respected, especially by the executive. And you can take that to the bank, that someone will be adversely mentioned and they will never face justice. So that's a big thing. Now, the youth, the situation of the youth in this country, who make very close to 70%, is dire. I live with them. I train some of them. It's not just the joblessness and, the hopelessness of waiting too long to find something to do. It is what happens when that does not happen, when they don't find something to do. The kinds of addictions, my friends, that are out here, it's not just the hard drugs. People in the village are drinking anything in order to lull their problems. It is so bad out there that, a 17-year-old has their life completely wasted. And it's because, in part, our education system, of course, just melts them out. I was looking at the statistics. Last year, I think we had pretty close to 1 million that sat KCSE. Then you have maybe 130, 140,000 that are admitted to university, some of them to do courses they never planned to do. Then you have this huge constituency of, let's say, 860,000 youth without a definition where they're going. So the system just smokes them out.
Okay, Ruben, as you're listing these issues, I mean, clearly there's a plethora of them, as you had said, as you had previously indicated.
And in the context of corruption.
Sure.
Because there's money allocated to deal with this.
So what you're saying essentially is that clearly somebody needs to come in that has a reform agenda. Why is that person you? What would it be that you have that is going to change the course of things in the country?
So there are two reasons. Well, why is that person me? First of all, because nobody else has stepped out. And we've been waiting, we've been looking, we've been praying, and that person is me because these issues have been alive with me for the longest of times. However, the real big deal is this. There are people on offer to try and deal with these things. And they are roaming this country, offering solutions and, telling everybody they will solve these things. The problem is that most of them are the reason why we are where we are. And some of them are still in office. And so they're saying that when I get out of office, I'll be able to do something about this thing. They are in office. So we ask, why haven't you done it? But there's something very, very important that every citizen of Kenya needs to know. That to solve the problems of our country, which primarily, in my opinion, are value-based, we are people of bad manners. We don't like to do things straight. You would need somebody who is from outside the system, outside enough, and yet acquainted or aware of what is going on. So you need someone from outside the system. But that person needs to come in with clean hands. And those are the hands, with God's help, I'm offering to the citizens of Kenya. If you're going to trust that someone will do something about scandals, the person needs to come in with clean hands, with no record of scandal. Well, as far as I am concerned, and the police and the legal systems and everyone can check this out. I've not stolen anybody's shamba. I've not, taken anyone's money. I've not taken anyone's wife. I have not, I come in saying, look at me, I'm willing to live this to the end. So you come in with a value-based system, integrity, chapter 6 notwithstanding.
Robin, I'm listening to you keenly, and I'm getting the impression that you believe that the would-be voter shares these values with you.
Well, if they don't share them, they articulate that they desire them.
How do they articulate it? Because if they articulated that they desire them, then the bulk of these individuals whom we voted in would not be in the position that they're in. They would not have been voted in the first place.
I think we have a unique moment, City. We have a very unique opportunity this time, because I think for the last 58 years, Kenyans are looking back and realizing, you know what? We've been taken on a ride. If you talk to the average person on the streets, you talk to the average person on the matatu now, they are actually saying enough is enough. So that we are at a unique opportunity where people have truly displayed who they are as leaders. For example, do you know that with all the retrenchments and people losing jobs last year, people losing their loved ones, and people scampering for health services and so on, Kenyans were able to see for the first time that all the leaders wanted was to share power under the BBI thing. So that they're pushing the BBI against some basic serious needs that the citizens had. And so citizens, for the first time, realized that they were on their own. And this is the unique thing about, this particular season in the country that has not been there before. Yes.
Ruben, when I hear you, when Ndu asked you, so why you? One of the answers you gave was because nobody else has stepped out. And you even went ahead, even earlier, you had told us, amongst your group, your friends, you were hoping that somebody else would. And when that person did not, then you stepped out.
Yeah.
It's basically like you're saying, if not me, then who?
No. Let me qualify that, because there are several of us that it's not right for me to bring out names and groups here,
Right.
but there's several of us that were being considered for this, and the one person that really was we were all waiting for, chickened out, and so when the team turned to me and said, why don't you give it a run? I said, why not? And by the way, it could be you. It could be City. It could be Ndu.
It could be many people, and that's the point I was going to.
And so the thing is, I step out and that's why I gave you my history, because I've been interested in governance for the longest of times. And where we are at what you would call a Kairos moment, where you have an opportunity to harness, a tired people into an alternative voice, and that is the voice I'm offering. And then bring them to the point where you are able to articulate these things and formulate a group of people that are like-minded and value-based to then address them on behalf of the nation.
Besides value, and I hear you, you're strong on that issue, and I agree with you, a value-based candidate is important. What else demonstrates your capability to actually deliver on all these things? The issues that you've articulated here, hunger, corruption, impunity, youth, joblessness. Every candidate who comes out ahead of next year's election is going to use the same words. The candidates that have come in before have used the same words. What distinguishes you in terms of your capability to deliver this?
So there are three things I would list. First of all, I live with the people. And so I bring to the table an understanding of where people really are. But secondly, I've been solving most of these things on a small, in my own small way with the resources and abilities that I have had. And so I believe that escalating this for the good of the Republic would be an added advantage. And that, my friends, my family, those who have worked with me in the media, in music production, in the education sector, and so on, can probably attest better than I can that there are ways of fixing these things. But thirdly, I do believe that my traveling around the country and living, my dream of leadership in a small scale has brought me in touch with so many qualified Kenyans that need to be in government that are out of government. We have the wrong people in government. A big chunk of the people who are in government are there without merit. So if we brought in meritocracy to define a better and new performing government, that would be what Kenyans would be waiting for. That's what would deliver this agenda. And I believe that I have enough connections locally and globally to be able to deliver the next Kenya, the Kenya that people are looking for.
Ruben,
yes.
Listening to you again, everything that you say, as Eric has pointed out, is precisely what anybody who wants to present themselves as a candidate for the presidency will say.
No, I don't think so. There are things they will not say.
Like what, for instance?
If you listen to the entire presentation of every presidential candidate right now, they're not going to address our bad manners.
They will.
They're not going to address values.
And
if they will, they will begin doing that after they listen to this show.
But
secondly,
Ruben, haven't you heard Shimolatawa will be full in 2013?
you
2023.
You can't run. You can't run your campaign. You can't run your government on threats.
But
and that's in fact precisely why we need a broad-based.
But Ruben, don't you see that you're ignoring a very a fundamental when it comes to our politics? Shamelessness, hypocrisy. Do you really think that a seasoned politician cares about what they have actually done and they align it to what they will say? They will say what needs to be said.
The fact that they don't care about whether they are hypocritical or not is the reason why I should run, because we should care. We should be brought to book. When we make promises, we must be seen to fulfill. There's no way you can, for example, say you're going to defend the Constitution, you swear by it, and then you just, you dismember the Constitution like it never exists.
All right, let me ask you a different question now. Now, do you think, Ruben, in all honesty, that the people of this country will be willing to vote for you with your disability?
Oh, that's a good one. I don't even feel disabled myself. I don't know.
No, it isn't. It isn't what you feel.
No, let's take it this way.
Yes.
The people will decide, okay?
Mm-hmm.
If I did not offer myself, if they did not see what I've done or hear what I can do, they would never have a choice. Now, we have a very unique opportunity for someone who comes to you not so much with what they can see around them, not so much with what their limitations are, but what they are able to offer within that disability, for example. And maybe it is time Kenyans took a little bit closeness. I wish Kenyans would be just a little close to what it takes to see the world a different way. You don't have to judge, leadership by what you can see or hear and so on. And so I bring to the table the ability to listen and listen well, the ability to act where people don't want to act, and the ability to drive a value-based leadership without...
Ruben, I put it to you that you're not being realistic. we have a constitution that understood, in my mind, the way Kenyans think. And that's why you have, for instance, the two-third gender rule. Because the Kenyan voter will not give women the time of day. The fact that you're a woman works against you before you even get to any place. In many places.
Yeah, and
in
the
this
same
country.
thing with disability too.
Please, you've understood it. Affirmative action in our political class with disability, so that people with disability have a chance.
You know what happens, City, is
Yes.
now that I step out
Yes.
as someone living with disability,
Yes.
I'm hoping Kenyans can talk about disability. Now that I step out and display perhaps what in my small way I'm able to do, then I'm hoping that I can be that light to the Kenyan voter, that you don't have to sit back there, you know, that it can be done, that they should give an opportunity to other people. And so I am what I would call a guinea pig for Kenyans to actually try and see whether this can work or not. I mean, Shakespeare put it very well. A man may see this world, without eyes. So I'm hoping that Kenyans can actually come to that point of realizing, how did Kigame even end up in school? How did he end up, being involved in Linda Katiba with his disability? How did he end up, with his PhD work? So if for no other reason, I'm hoping that it will give impetus. Even if, for example, for argument's sake, I don't make it to the ballot, I'm hoping that this will be a positive step for parents to stop hiding their children in their homes, bring them out for opportunities that are waiting out here. And I think I stand a good chance to be able to represent a totally different way of doing politics.
Okay. Now, with that, there's also the basic way of doing politics. What's your political party?
Well, right now I'm standing as an independent. There are negotiations taking place. You know as much as I do that a party can and does, in fact, shape somebody's agenda in a very big way. And there are advantages of being an independent candidate. However, we are in negotiations with like-minded groups to be able to come up with a compromise, some kind of a coalition that brings together a lot of my independent candidates and those who see politics in this country from a value-based position. Yeah. So some deliberations are on. I've been asked by 2 different parties if I would vie with them. I'm looking at everything in terms of what that means for my agenda and what that means for the delivery of a clean Kenya.
Would you vote for Reuben Kigame next year? Is Kenya ready for an alternative candidate? We know the kind of candidates we've been having in the last elections. And also we know that there have been many others that have come out as alternatives for us in the previous elections. Reuben Kigame is throwing his heart in the ring this time and saying, I want to be the 5th president of the Republic of Kenya. Would you vote for him? What are the issues that you think would be working for him, and what are the things that will be working against him? This conversation continues on the Situation Room even into the next hour. And we want to thank our audience on KTN Home who've been with us since the top of the hour. But switch over to SpiceFM, wherever you are around the country, Nairobi, Mombasa, Kisumu, Nakuru, Eldoret, Nyeri, Malindi, and SpiceFM KE, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, as we continue the conversation with Reuben Kigame. Coming up at the top of the hour is our news bulletin, and then we'll be picking calls in the next hour and opening up the phone lines for you to engage with Reuben Kigame, for you to ask your questions to presidential aspirant Reuben Kigame, who wants your vote and wants your support. Good morning.
Spice up your life.
This is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto. 3 more candidates will be interviewed today to fill the 4 IEBC commissioners' post. Omore Osendo will be the first to be interviewed today starting 9:30 a.m. and will be followed by Dina Jeruto Kipkebut and then Felix Useru Nyauchi. Yesterday, Caroline Nyeri, Catherine Kamindo and Cecilia Ngoyoni had their chance at the panel led by Elizabeth Moli.
So as IBC, we need to have continuous structured engagement with the media because they are our voices.
Just tell Kenyans what that means, having parallel servers.
There are different sites. So even if this one fails, there's still an alternative from a layman's point of view. In good time, in preparation for the election, that we educate the masses about the various positions for which they have to vote.
The Building Bridges initiative is supported by majority of Kenyans and cannot be stopped, says Homa Bay Senator Moses Kajwang. Speaking on KTN's Crossfire, he said the judicial process that has posed the constitutional amendment process through the BBI shows that Kenya has institutions that are allowed to do their jobs as described in the Constitution.
You know, Kenya is a wonderful country. That someone can go to court and stop a political process that appeared to be unstoppable, and stop a political process that has got the overwhelming support of millions of Kenyans and county assemblies. And I think that that's something positive about this country, that in as much as so many things are going bad, but we still have that basic respect for certain institutions. It is not perfect, it is not pure, but I like what is going on in this country, that a political process can be paused to allow people to go to court.
Parents and various stakeholders are being urged to provide their daughters with their basic needs like sanitary towels. Terry Maina, national chairperson of the Female Scouts Union, says many girls end up being involved in early relationships that result in premature pregnancies that have seen many drop out of school.
Wasichana wengi hawana mahitaji hapa na pale, na wanapata wanaume wengine ambao wana nia mbaya, wanawapa pesa kidogo kidogo hivi na pale ili wanunue pads, mahitaji yao wasichana, na baada ya siku chache ama miezi chache hivi wanapata urafiki na msichana anapata mimba. Hili jambo kama sisi wazazi ni jambo ambalo lazima tutitilie maanani.
The Kwale County Assembly has approved the removal of Minister of Social Affairs, Culture and Talent Development Ramadan Bungale. These follows allegations that he embezzled 65 million shillings while in charge of business in the cabinet. Rayam Kongu is a member of the County Assembly.
Ni fedha zilitolewa kwa mifumo ya kisiasa na milioni 65 ikawa ziko nje na hazijulikani zimepawa nani wala zitarudishwa vipi. Tumedeclare under section article 73 chapter 6 of the Constitution of Kenya, he is not fit to hold public office.
Former South African President Jacob Zuma could leave prison after 4 months. According to Minister Ronald Lamola, Zuma will have the right to apply for pardon after 4 months of serving his sentence. This is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto.
.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
All right, so we still have that traffic on the southern bypass still holding up for some time. Not quite sure exactly what the issue is. We're looking at Valley Road, where unfortunately a vehicle has burst into flames and it's causing some traffic. That was earlier on. So traffic in several parts of the city, let's just keep an eye on that. Mombasa Road seems to be flowing a lot better now. And we also see coming off of Thika Road, joining the Muthaiga Square, that it's much better now. The visibility now going out west is even worse now than it was before. Headed into Naivasha, headed into Nakuru, Larry area is the worst, and what we're being told you cannot see at all. Probably a better idea to stay off the roads until the fog lifts, and then we can move back on. All right? Talk to us about where you might get stuck. SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Text on 40127.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
The conversation continues in The Situation Room. Ruben Kigame, presidential aspirant, is still with us. And now we want you to engage with Ruben Kigame. City, today's proverb.
Right. The beak of a bird is what tells you what it eats.
The beak of a bird is what tells you what it eats.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Bird, beak, eat, tell.
Well done.
Mm-hmm.
Where is that proverb from?
Let me have a look and see.
Very interesting one.
Sierra Leone.
So the size of the beak.
No,
the type of beak.
Just take.
You look at it and
take the beak in its in its entire variety and consider.
So if you have a long beak,
it'll tell us. If you have a huge beak, it will tell us
what you eat.
Yes, if it is short and stout, it will tell us.
Right.
That is very interesting.
So the question we were asking this hour is, are Kenyans ready to consider other presidential choices in 2022? One of them, the alternative in 2022, is right here with us in the studio, Ruben Kigame. Kevin Domvin says Ruben Kigame is capable and I will vote him in any day, anytime. Why would I vote in the people who have disappointed us for the last I don't know how many years? Keep it up, brother.
At least I have one vote.
That's one. Zephaniah says, it's good to be ambitious, but some ambitions just drop. The truth is that when it comes to voting, even his social media followers will not vote for him.
Well, that's his view.
Chacha Robbie says, it's the only way to solve Kenyans' problems. The other thieves that we cannot depend on, Ruben Kigame will lead this country somewhere. Julius Watitwa says, my good friend Kigame, politics is not your portion. It would be more ideal if you left it to those who know how to play this game.
Apparently, but those who know how to play this game are the ones who brought us to this position
Exactly.
We are changing. Ruben is changing the game.
Right. I'm hoping that we can have a different way of doing it. And by the way, someone comes to that position because they have looked at how things are done and they're just frustrated. I think he's airing out of frustration.
Yeah.
This thing doesn't work, Ruben. You know, I think it can work when we get together and And there are enough people out here who believe that, something can be done differently. I think it can work.
Ruben, one of the most tried and tested ways of proving whether somebody is right for the picking politically, or even, not even just politically, but even in the workforce, labor force, is a track record. Often asked, what have you done that then would point to capability to be able to run things on a higher level, on a larger scale?
Yeah. And that's a big question, I think. Just before you respond to that, let's hear what Ali from Mombasa wants to say. Good morning, Ali.
Morning to you. How are you?
Fine, thank you, Ali.
And you?
Good morning, Ali.
Hi. Sigame Ruben.
Yes, sir. How
you
are
have
you?
My vote.
I have your vote.
Fine. Yes.
Man,
and
we're
I'm
doing
serious.
well. Thank you.
I'm serious.
Why would you vote for
The
him?
question will be one only. And I will use your example. Forgive me if I've touched you the wrong side. You are a disabled person.
Yes.
And you cannot walk maybe. I don't know what type of disability do you have.
It's visual.
Let's take an example of limbs.
It's visual. This is specific.
Okay, visual.
Yep.
So you have a stick to walk with it.
No.
That helps you to walk with it.
I don't, but I can use it.
You don't, but you can use it, yeah?
Yes.
That is pretty good, well, for my question. Now, because you don't have that stick, and you need to have that stick to use it for you to walk with it, what will you do? Because my question comes like this way. We have a constitution that will provide you with a stick, but it does not provide you with a stick. The people who are running this constitution or are articulating issues on the constitution or are supposed to give you that stick, they don't want to give it to you. But the constitution is there. What are you going to do to make sure that this vision person has a stick without fear or favor of anything? Or there is no constitution for you to have the stick. What are you going to do to make sure that
Okay.
you have a constitution that will give you that stick?
Good question. We've heard it, Ali.
Very
He'll
nice.
respond to that. Pigeon in Utawala, good morning.
Good morning, Eric. How are you?
Very fine, thank you.
Yeah, how is Ndo and City?
Good.
We are well, thank you. And how are you doing?
I'm fine, City. Now, it's interesting that I like what Ruben is trying to do. And I remember as an active listener at the SpiceFM and Station Room, I declared my interest also to vie for the presidency a long time ago, just that maybe my time for an interview have not come through maybe from your side. And I hope you'll do that one day.
Yes, indeed. John will be in touch with you actually shortly.
I'll really appreciate it, but I want to tell Ruben that sometimes in this country at this particular moment, we need people who can make the impossibility possible.
Okay.
Hello, Eric.
We can actually hear you.
So, Ruben should go on. At the same time, I'm also trying to push from my side. I'm trying to ensure that I also be in the ballot to represent another group of people. There's a group of young people here who are also considered minority, but need to have a voice and a stake in this country because the people are suffering. I call them the real hustlers. They are the fake hustlers in the vehicle and the real hustlers who are going day to day with their own business and struggling to make a meal or even put a meal or even for their family. And these people need to be given a space to represent their views to this country and to ensure that they can take also the leadership of this country. So I appreciate what he's doing, and I'm looking towards also one day when you will invite me also to represent my view as a young person who is also struggling here. But I believe that I'm also having a chance and I have some good vision for this country to transform this country.
We look forward to having
Or
that
even
conversation
better,
with you.
we can get together and see how to do it together. I mean, the more the merrier, and when we bring in our ideas, we form synergy. And why don't you look me out? Maybe we can even work together.
Yeah, I'm looking towards City first of all, and Eric to give me a chance there so that you can also get to know what I have for
bring
these
in
people.
City and Du and Eric.
Very good.
One day I'll get that opportunity.
Thank you, Pigeon. John will be in touch with you, and then we'll see when we can have you in the studio.
Thank you.
Asante sana. Karanja in Naivasha, good morning.
Good morning, Eric, Du and City.
Good morning.
Good morning.
and my friend of called Ruben Kigame.
Yeah, good morning.
Good morning, Ruben. I write your music,
Asante sana.
The one that called Sikuachi, that one I love so very much.
Uliahidi Huniachi.
Sounds like a Japanese name, Huniachi.
Yes.
Yes, Huniachi. I love that music very much. That CD especially very much.
Thank you.
Yes, coming to the point, Imelda de Marcos, in 1980s, Imelda de Marcos presidential candidate, her first lady, in 1980 says, win or lose elections, we go shopping after elections. So I want to tell you, keep it up.
Thank you.
Win or lose, he should go shopping.
We go shopping the next day.
Yes. Win or lose election, after win or lose election, we go shopping after elections. Isn't it? The Marcos says so in 1980s.
Okay.
So I want to tell you, my friend, you keep it up. God is with you. God who saw you to marry that beautiful lady that I know will lead you to win victory in the coming next general election.
Does he have your vote, Karanja?
Yes, I vote you, definitely, including my wife, Elizabeth, and my eldest son, Karanja.
Then we can go shopping with you after that.
Ken in Kericho. Good morning, Ken.
Good morning.
How are you?
Good morning.
Very well. How are you?
We're very well.
Thank you.
I'm very encouraged by Ruben's decision to run for the presidency. I think it's it's something new for this country. What I would urge him to do is not to align himself with these hyenas who are already in politics. I think his best hope is to run as an independent candidate. He has my vote, and I'll campaign for him in the entirety of Kericho County. Go, Ruben. Go, Ruben.
Look me out. Let's
very
get
much,
together. Thanks.
Onyango in Nairobi. Good morning.
Yes, good morning. I have two questions to Ruben. I want to hear his opinion. What is his take on this degree issue to our leaders?
Okay.
And the second, what's his opinion as far as the BBI proposal are concerned, the particular government that they want to bring on?
Okay.
Good questions.
Those are two good questions that he'll respond to. Mheshimiwa Grace Kiptui, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Mheshimiwa.
How are you?
Fine.
We are very well. Habari ya kupotea.
Niko. Niko salama kabisa.
Asante.
All right. Asante sana. Ruben Kigame is in the studio. Speak to him.
Ruben.
Yes, ma'am.
Chamge.
Chamege.
You've touched enough in me as you are presenting your presentation. However,
yes,
you've given us aspirations of every Kenyan, but the reality is normally different from the aspirations.
Okay.
I have been in politics for a period of 5 years. Hello?
Yes, we're listening. Go ahead.
And I've got some observations that I think we can share, which might help him open up and realize the reality it may not be like together with aspirations.
Okay.
Interesting.
But I thank God that there are Kenyans who are hopeful and wish that they could bring change in our country.
What is this reality, Grace?
The reality is this, that we have history as a country, which has not been very, very, it does not hold the values that Ruben is talking about. He spoke of integrity, he spoke of value-based leadership, but the values that Kenyans and Kenyan leaders have exercised since independence are not what he's saying. For instance, the voter, we talk on behalf of the voter, and we wish we could help the voter become better. But this voter is not keen to play game with the aspirations of whoever comes forward to ask for the vote.
Why?
I would want to say historical factors. The leaders who came before, immediately after independence and all, had a philosophy of you let the sleeping dogs sleep, don't wake them up. And if they bark, you give them some bones and they will just go back to sleep. Yeah, they wanted people who would clap for them every so often, and whenever, if you improve their lifestyle, they may not clap for you the next time.
Yeah.
Okay.
But Mheshimiwa, it is actually very easy for me to do just that. It's very easy for me to say, let me just keep singing my songs, let me just keep teaching, and, let those who step out lead the country the way they want. Unfortunately, I am a Kenyan. I am a patriot, and I know, that I desire a better country. So if I look to these same leaders to deliver for me the country that I want, a space for me to do my music, a space for me to live as someone with disability, and they fail completely and continuously, then I don't let the sleeping dogs lie. I ensure that I find someone to tie the dogs. And I step out. Now, let me give you a practical example, Mheshimiwa.
Yes.
When you want to read and write, as Mheshimiwa, how much will a pen cost you?
Not much.
Maybe 10 shillings, 20 shillings.
Yeah.
You can read and write. Do you know how much it will cost me to read and write?
So much. Maybe
110,000 shillings.
Yes.
To get something called a brailler that I can, use to write something I can read with my fingers as a blind person.
Yes.
Does the government provide braillers for persons living with visual disability? The answer is no.
Yes.
So why take them to school if they can't have the brailler, for example? So why is it that I would let the sleeping dogs lie when they cannot do simple things like that? So I step out and say, you know what, there is a different way of doing this. Let's bring the conversation to the fore. Maybe there are things, and it's not just about disability. I quoted this young man who is so hungry that he has to inbox me for food. Do they know?
Yes, and there are many.
For them, it's statistics. I'm saying we need somebody who lives with the people to come from outside and help shape the discourse and also do things a bit differently. And that's why, for example, I'm saying we need to stop the hemorrhage. Attend to the corruption so that the 2 billion we lose per day goes to buying food, goes to buying braillers for persons living with disability, goes to buying wheelchairs, goes to empower women, goes to build rehabilitation centers for our youth so that they are not destroyed by drugs, help them. So
and you are not alone, Ruben.
Yeah, so I'm saying that you are right, that that's how things have been done. But we don't have to keep doing things exactly the same way.
Yeah, the reason why I was calling is to discuss, when you listen to many opinions, then you are stronger and you are able to navigate your way forward.
That is so true.
Yeah, so I'm only telling him the hard realities that he will meet as he goes forward.
Kwa
You
ground.
have a young generation in Kenya who are very hungry.
Yep.
Yes.
And whenever you appear, it's like they want to vent their frustrations on you.
Yeah.
So you've got to learn to have a skin as thick as that of a savo elephant. You know,
Thank you.
the savo elephant, that one, that red one, the skin is that hard.
Good points there
Yeah.
you've given him. Thank
I'll
you
do
very
my
much,
best.
Grace.
You do your best. We wish you well, and we are with you.
Thank you.
I was just pointing out at the hard realities that you may experience going forward.
I do appreciate, and I hope that we get together and talk some more.
Asante sana Mheshimiwa. Benjamin in Eldoret, your hometown, Ruben.
Good morning, Eric, morning.
Morning,
Ruben, and my fellow apologetics. How are you?
Fine, Benjamin. How are you doing?
Well, I'm fine, Benjamin. Eldoret is cool. We are experiencing some rain. Thank you very much, Eric. I support you, brother. I support you. You know, I know you personally, and I know what you stand for. You have my vote, brother.
Thank you.
You know, I just want to inform, is it Grace Kiptui? The caller who went here.
Yes.
You know, the paradigm has shifted. You know, we are enlightened Kenyans. We know what we want, and we know exactly the kind of leaders that we want for ourselves. I support you, brother. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Benjamin. So, before we take the break, I think respond to the questions that you asked.
Yeah, there was the question on, how the government doesn't give you a walking stick.
Yep.
The Constitution grants you all those opportunities. The government doesn't. I think that is why I'm running, because I know certain things that a lot of people in government assume. When I visit, especially persons living with disability, they tell me where they are at. I mean, I know some things, but I didn't even know that there are so many people just sitting in the village, in fact, believing that they are cursed. I never knew it was that bad until I began to go to the villages. Now, there are people who, for example, would need a lot of assistance to just even be accepted in a school. Yeah. And so knowledge is power, because as I travel around the country, I'm able to bring what the Constitution offers back to the people. And so the people help me to understand them. Leadership is really about the people telling you where they're at. And that's one reason, by the way, gentlemen and lady, I don't fully buy into this bottom-up approach. Because there's really nothing wrong with the bottom. Kenyans are hardworking. Kenyans go about their business. I mean, the border guy that is being used to define the worst of the worst is busy going about his business really well. It's that somebody decides they're going to increase the price of a motorbike or fuel or bread. And so the problem is not down there. The problem is up here. And I know people will say, yeah, we've tried the top-down approach and it never worked. It has never worked because you don't do the right thing to dislodge what is going wrong at the top. And so I don't fully buy into that. Now, what was that second question? There was somebody who...
There was a question about your stand on the BBI.
Yes, on the BBI, I think I've been fairly vocal. That it would have been very nice if citizens would be able to read the document in the first place. Most of us, unlike the Constitution, never had a chance to read it. But that is now behind us. It's in the courts, and the High Court ruled that it was illegal. And the Court of Appeal, is listening to the case. What I'm worried about is whether we'll actually even have a referendum, because the timings are off. Yeah.
Is it important for a leader to have a degree?
I don't think so. I don't think so at all. In fact, leadership is not about how many books you've read. It's about wisdom. It's about decision making. It's about service to the people. There are people who are so read, my friend, but they're no good for the society. Do you remember Mugabe? Mugabe was probably one of the most educated
presidents in the world.
But look at Zimbabwe. So I'm one of those who believes you really don't need a degree to be a leader. And I say that with someone working on my PhD. I don't think it's important. I would rather be led by someone without a degree that has values and has good decision-making techniques, abilities, and can listen to people. That's the key.
All right. Before we take the break, the other question, what is your track record?
Well, I think it would be good for people to decide. I wish more people would come up and talk about, my days of being their boss at Fish FM. And also the many students have taught through the years. I've just played my part as a citizen to bring service, to bring help. The many boys I have mentored, my faith tells me when I give, I should not be loud about it. So I do go to the community and offer services, help, food and clothes and so on to widows and orphans. I do reach out to persons living with disability, especially the visual disability, and help them to go to school and pay their fees and so on. But so the track record of someone is really best known by his immediate people. And there are things that are public. I know people know about my music production, my concerts and so on, my writing, and publishing and so on. But in terms of the community, I'm sure the people of Vega, the people in Turkana that we've been taking food and clothes to, would be able to tell the story. And so the issue maybe is not even just how much I have done. The issue is how much more I could do with an opportunity.
All right. We'll ask more questions and also hear from the audience as we take this break. 9:30, Kenya's biggest conversation. In the room with us this morning is Reuben Kigame. He wants your vote as president of the Republic of Kenya next year, in next year's general election. He says he's here, he's ready to serve. He's presenting himself as the alternative, because what we've heard is the same crop of leaders being elected year in, year out, and you still have the frustrations. Would you vote for Reuben Kigame? Let us know. SpiceFM KE, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. Have you visited the jobs portal by Standard Group? This is jobs.standardmedia.co.ke. Well, you should, because there are many jobs that have been posted there today. For example, the Nairobi Hospital is looking for various employees. They're looking for head of ICT, a manager in radiology, specialist in nephrology, a critical care specialist, chief pathologist. Nairobi Hospital is looking for you, clinical pharmacist. The Nairobi Hospital is also looking for director of strategy and innovation, chief radiologist, chief pharmacist. Hey, it's like they're just looking for a whole chiefs.
Can have a second job.
This is it. Jobs.standardmedia.co.ke. Check them out. Good morning.
"24/7 around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM.
The COVID-19 pandemic has reminded us that knowing how to spot fake news can be the difference between life and death. The spread of fake news has national implications too. Is your governor really delivering on his campaign promises? Or does the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission have a watertight case against him? It all boils down to the news you consume. That's why Spice FM and its partners have created the Fighting Fakes Media Literacy campaign to help Kenyans become more discerning news consumers. We'll show you how to take care before you share. Tune in to the Situation Room from 6 a.m. every weekday morning for refreshing and profitable conversations about the facts and only the facts.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
You're listening. Conditions and light rain in Nairobi at 15, highs of 18 and lows of 12 today. At 14 degrees, Nyeri, still raining, highs of 18. Light rain as well in Nakuru at 15, highs of 21 and lows of 14. 12 will be the low in Eldoret, where it's also raining at 15. 21 degrees and mostly cloudy at 21 in Kisumu, highs of 26. 24 will be the high in Kakamega, where it's mostly cloudy at 21. 25 and raining in in Mombasa, highs of 28 and lows of 23. We're looking at lows of 24 in Malindi. It's raining at 26. Mostly sunny conditions at 22 in Kampala. It'll go to highs of 25 and lows of 18. Partly sunny conditions at 25 in Dar es Salaam, highs of 29 and lows of 22. Johannesburg, 19 degrees will be the high, lows of 5. Sunny conditions currently at 11. Heavy thunderstorms in Lagos this morning at 25, highs of 28 and lows of 24. It's 19 degrees in Kinshasa, highs of 30 and lows of 21. 32 will be the high in Beijing, 31 at the moment and sunny. 16 degrees in Paris and sunny conditions with highs of 23. 23 will also be the high in London, where it's sunny at 17. And it's now raining in New York at 23, to go to highs of 30 and lows of 22 through this Friday.
Spice up your life.
Okay, so still some traffic right around the southern bypass. But apart from that, everything seems to have quelled quite some. Not too much of an issue, except for the visibility problem that folks are encountering going out west. So just keep an eye on that, and let's just be as careful as possible. We don't have jam-packed issues at the moment. Seems to have eased out coming off of Thika Road. We'll keep an eye on things through the day. SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Text on 40127.
Are you ready? Okay.
Spice FM. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right.
All right, the conversation continues. 26 minutes to 10. Would you vote for Reuben Kigame next year as president? Seeking third-party endorsement. Here is one. Levi Cornes, I think. He says, I worked for Reuben Kigame over a decade ago. Where he lacks insight, he makes up with vision. Wow. Questions, though. How are you planning to deal with perennial voting on tribe, number one? And number two, how will he deal with the handout culture at the campaigns? Start with those.
Good questions. By the way, Levi Cornes. Very nice. Yeah, we joke and say he's Cornes. Very nice to hear you this morning, sir. One of my best staff, actually. And he was with me, especially at the radio. Very, very good presenter. Anyway, so beginning with the issue of the handout culture, I'm hoping that this is something we can actually demonstrate in this particular election, that you can actually articulate without handouts. Well, I did it in Vega, and I'm hoping that we can do it again. Now, this culture needs to change, and I'm hoping that come August next year, there will be evidence that it can be done.
You know, presidential campaigns, all campaigns are expensive.
Yeah, I looked at the IBC figures that were limiting how much you can use on a campaign. And I saw the presidential campaign should not spend more than 5 billion. And I went mouth open, 5 billion.
Yes.
You mean people use that kind of money? I mean, so I'm really hoping that Kenyans this time around can bring the billions back to themselves instead of, having them wasted in the campaign. So you may not see me around with choppers and all the pomp, because I try as much as possible to live within my means and encourage others to do so. I'm hoping that we who really know where it bites can do it different this time.
So how do you hope to finance your campaign? Because you need to go around the country. You need to meet with the people. You need to go.
Yeah.
For you to get 50% plus one, you need to engage with the entire 17 or 20 million voters.
For you to even get the 25% that is required in the county.
Half of the counties.
That is correct. My friends are coming along fairly well, and I'm very happy about that. I'm hoping I can have more, but I'm hoping to keep this as clean as possible. And so, yes, I've set up...
When you say clean, what do you mean, sir?
I mean that I do not want to be bought by someone on the basis of change your policies, we'll fund you, you can join us, compromise. I'm not going to compromise. I'm going all the way. And so... we are going to keep this as clean as possible. And I'm hoping that I can have more of my friends using that pay bill number. I'm hoping that especially Kenyans in diaspora can believe in me enough to bring in some of that, some of the resources. So far, so good. I believe I'll move only as long as I have the resources. I'm one of those candidates that believes I should never go into debts and loans in order to run a campaign. I'll only do what is possible as God enables me.
You know, it's interesting that you say what you're saying, because you may not articulate it, but you want to introduce a new culture.
Yes, and I'm hoping that this far, especially those in Vega already saw a taste of that, that it is possible to talk to people instead of manipulate people. I don't want anyone to buy for me because I gave them 100 shillings. I want to listen to you. I want to sit with you and hear, how can we do this thing? In fact, what is shocking, City, is that I found a number of people that I even never met. They're tweeting me, they're inboxing me and saying, I like the way you're doing it. I'm going to give you 5,000. I like the way you're doing it. You represent my voice. Here's 500 shillings. Go, Ruben. So it's working. Actually, it can work. Well, Obama was supported. I know that Kenyans will support me.
You know, I mentioned the change of culture. When you have a culture where politicians, not even political parties, spend their own money, maybe for
They
some of the
spend our money.
Well, our money to some degree, but when I say their own money, meaning you talk of Obama, they have a party structure that actually supports their candidature.
True.
Okay, the president may raise funds on his own, but a lot of the support is from the party that you belong to.
Yes.
And then with our culture, people expect handouts.
True. And you know the sad thing, City, is this, that these same monies that are coming back to the people are actually the stolen monies. And the reason why I have the audacity to say they're stolen is, if somebody's salary is so much, if somebody's investments are so much, how do you end up with someone having billions upon billions that they cannot account for, ready to dish? And so I'm saying, well, it's time for us to get our money back so that these billions, instead of being dished out, can go into building roads, building health centers. They can go into, buying, beds for COVID patients. I mean, it is so bad in our hospitals, my friends. It is so bad. And yet from early last year, we knew that counties were going to get ready. Wananchi are on their own. It is so bad. Do you know, when we talk about, for example, something like debt, until you humanize debt, people don't know what you're talking about. Because $1 trillion is just a word. $1 trillion lost borrowed is just a word. Until you break down and say, this trillion could have done this and this for you.
Sure.
And so we need to humanize the discourse around how bad our economy is. The theft is not just the people stealing money. It is actually services being removed from the people.
That's true. There's some comments. Nash Munene, for example, says, I'll definitely vote for Ruben Kigame and even campaign for him. It's time to get rid of jokers that call themselves our leaders.
Wow. You see, it can happen, folks.
Ojaka says, Ruben represents the option that I've been looking for. Leadership starts with genuine intentions, which emanate from values and beliefs. I'll vote for Ruben. Wow. And I want to go with that and say, as you can hear, those who are saying that they support you have placed you with specific expectation. That you come in, you represent change, you represent a difference. You're not the first person who has come and campaigned on a platform of change and difference. You're not even the first person of faith who has even won the faith of a voter. We have members of parliament today who are members of the faith. We've had members of parliament who've served a term and then they've been voted out. We've had bishops who've come in and they've been voted out. And what is it that happens? Yeah. People, because of that high expectation, people feel that you've let them down.
Yeah.
How can you guarantee that you would not let the people who vote for you down?
I think it's a good opportunity for people to really get to know who Ruben is, because those who have lived with me and those who have worked with me know, for example, that this very same heart of compassion can also be very, very hard when something goes wrong. And so that combination is important, what Martin Luther King Jr. called a tough mind and a tender heart. The two must go together. I know if people have been keen enough, they know that I've been even critical of things that have gone on within my own faith. You know, the church has almost ostracized me a number of times because of just saying, you can't do this. You can't use television, for example, to swindle people out of their hard-earned cash. And so I'm associated with that kind of straight talk and straight black and white life. My own family knows that. And so I'm hoping that I can bring this to work for the Kenyan, where people are not willing to address certain issues. I'm willing to speak for them. Where people are not willing to act, I am willing to act. Of course, you need to demonstrate, you need to prove that something has gone wrong, someone is guilty, and so on. But I'm not afraid to jail. No. But most of all, the important thing is, can we just stick to the basics of where Mwananchi is? Before we can go into all those projects and so on, let's just find out if Mwananchi anachakula. You know, if Mwananchi can reach a dispensary, if a young person can actually go to school. All these things. What do you do as a single mother? What do you do as you know, a woman that, you know, can't even get credit? So let's bring this to where Mwananchi is. Our constitution actually gives Mwananchi the power. It's not even Ruben. It is Mwananchi himself telling Ruben what to do. And so listening is so important. And that's one thing I can bring to the table that most of these guys will not bring to the table.
Ruben, there's what you hope to do, what you plan to do, what you'd like to do. Then there's the reality of the job.
Yes.
Because running a country is an extremely complicated affair.
True.
You mentioned Barack Obama. In the country where that gentleman was president, one would be asking, for instance, Ruben, what is your foreign policy? How do you want us to relate, for instance, with our neighbors?
Right.
Okay? Ruben, when it comes to issues of LGBTQ, what are your views on such matters?
Right.
Ruben,
Pro-choice.
Yes, pro-choice. When it comes to youth engagement, Ruben, what are your views?
What is your views, for example, on national debt?
Yes,
What is your policy on borrowing and development?
And I wish we had another 2 hours to engage with that. However, I will answer all of those in one. The advantage that a Ruben Kigame presidency brings is that Ruben Kigame is actually a historian. Ruben Kigame is interested in current affairs. Ruben Kigame has traveled. So I'm able to have a comparative, perspective that can bring down, all these international relations and so on to the common person, because you have to melt this down to how they affect the common person. But there are things that I must say here with regard to all the different examples you've mentioned, and that is we get lost in the details. We get so lost in the details, so much so that, for example, someone that stands out and says, I need my rights as someone who is gay. I need my rights as someone, who has lost a pregnancy because of abortion. There are underlying questions that are never asked. When all of these are said and done, it is not about LGBTQI. It is not about abortion or, pro-life, pro-choice. It is about humanity. You begin right there. All of us made in the image of God. I don't look at you, first of all, as a Muslim or Hindu or atheist. I look at you as a human being. I don't look at you as a victim of abortion or a practicer of abortion. I don't look at you as someone, who wants to parade in order for your rights as a gay person to be noticed. First of all, I want to know whether you're gay, whether you are an atheist, whether you are a Christian, have you eaten? Have you eaten? Do you have medicine when you are sick? There are those fundamental issues. Mine is not to dictate to you what lifestyle you will live, what belief you will have, who you'll associate with. Mine is to ensure that the basic fundamental rights that make you a human being are observed. And that is what a president should do. And a president, by the way, does not work in isolation. I have personal desires with regard to, foreign policy. I would like, for example, to see better relationships with Somalia, because some of the problems are basically easy to solve. I mean, why is it, for example, that our boys are out there? And how long were they supposed to be there? Why is it that, for example, we cannot develop better relationships with, Congo and bring them on board? Why not intervene in South Sudan, for example, so that you bring them to the table, maybe address things in a slightly different ways, bring in the experts.
Ruben,
sir.
Therein lies the complexity of some of these things.
True.
Because to assume that those who are in power have not made attempts to do the very thing that you are doing, and to even assume that it is easy, in my opinion, that is not the correct perspective.
I'm not saying, I think I need to be understood here.
Yes.
I'm not saying, therefore, come a Kagame presidency, Somalia and Kenya will be at peace. No, I would like to see peace. I would like to get to the heart of certain questions, like that maritime question. I would like to be able to sit with the Somalis themselves, bring a team of Kenyan experts, a team of Somali experts, and maybe just have a bit more dialogue, But nobody goes into this thing, by the way, assuming that Kagame will get in and everything will be different. In fact, I can't even promise that, for example, in 5 years, certain things will be done. But there are things I can for sure.
Actually, Ruben, you must.
There are certain things that one can put his hands on because they are doable. But I don't want to promise the moon when I can, only reach this. So, for example, for me, the issue of food is so simple. It is so simple because we can see where the importations are taking over from local production, where the collapse of local industries
stop saying
and so
it
on.
is simple, because
No.
It actually isn't simple.
I'm basically saying
the simplicity is perhaps in you will not leave any stone unturned in trying to find that there is a solution.
So
you have no obstruction in your mind when it comes to.
Exactly.
So therein lies the simplicity of it.
Yes. So the point is meritocracy. Who is working with you? Because the cartels that we see today succeed partly because they have a hand in government. It begins with who you appoint to actually work with you. And I believe that, for example, City, with your medical research, for example, if I needed someone to advise me on medical issues, I should not go to Ndu. I should look for you. If I needed someone, to help me with diplomacy and so on, then I look for Ndu. Putting people in their right places is going to be so key. And that is why even deciding on something like a party becomes a very complex issue, because parties come with vested interests.
Actually, let's begin with allowing certain people to support you, because with the politics, people who support you will want something in return.
And that's why I'm taking a totally different trajectory on my campaign, even refusing money, by the way. I have refused money because somebody comes to you and says, you know what, we can do this thing together. I can put in this much and usinisahau, and I'm saying...
And it is to be expected.
Yes. And so...
Ruben,
Go ahead. So I'm saying that it begins there. I don't begin to imagine that I can change things if I can't change something now with regard to how I live now. So the whole thing is, do people know enough that I'm able to do that? I'm putting this on the table.
What structure do you have in place, Ruben, that one would enable people to engage with you better? the things you talk about, getting to understand what they want, how they feel, structure.
Yes.
If they wanted to support you, how do they go about it, and what sort of support do you actually feel that you would need from the general public?
So, two good questions. So, first of all, I am probably the most accessible person that the Kenyans will ever see. Not only can you inbox me and I get back to you. Not only can you email me and I get back to you. Not only I even give phone numbers. So it's very easy to find me. But my way of campaigning, City, is totally different. I go into an area and spend 3 or 4 days there, and I sit with the people. I sit with the women, and I want to know what are their issues. And I share with them how I intend to deal with some of those and listen to how they think I should. I sit with the young people. I sit with persons living with disability. I sit, with wazees, because even the wazees are neglected. I listen to them. So that's how I campaign. I talk to people, and then I move on to another area and do the same. So I campaign using groups.
Okay.
Then, in terms of, someone who really believes in what I do and, want to be part of this, all they need to do is call my team, my secretariat, or inbox me on Twitter or Facebook or, Instagram. And I am so reachable. We'll be able to get back to you and show you how you can even support on our pay bill number, how you can join us on the campaign trail, maybe give me a truck or something. Opportunities are there. And as you've heard from the phone calls and so on, Kenyans are so willing to bring about this change. It is actually happening. I know it can broaden and become bigger, but it is already happening. And I'm liking how Kenyans are receiving me. If you have huge, beyond manageable expectations, you'll be disappointed. But I go one step at a time. And I'm hoping that that's the thing I can bring into the budget issues, for example. Don't spend what you don't have. Let's just spend what we have so that, we are able to then make this the country we want it to be in the shortest time possible.
So, Ruben, there's a certain mindset, I think, that envelopes the way in which Kenyans operate politically. And I think there's the breaking of these mindsets, or at least the altering of these mindsets, then to be able to get to Kenyans and say, let's change the way in which we think in order to change the way that we act. How ready would you be able to now start having these conversations about how Kenyans' minds need to change in order to make these decisions?
Kenyans' minds don't need to change.
Mindsets.
So I think Kenyans already know what they want. Kenyans know what their problems are. And so mine is to listen to them and decide that instead of sitting in Nairobi and deciding for them, let's sit from the community, point of view and say, you know what, you may have thought that a road is what we need. No, we need a dispensary more urgently than a road. So listening is probably the greatest thing I bring to the table that the others will not on that particular question. You don't need to change anybody's life or way of doing things. Just support them to live better where they are and grow.
So as you head into now, popularizing your candidacy and wanting more people to engage with you, I can see, for example, a comment here by Ojaka who says, I believe a good strategy to articulate how you'll deal with the issues that bedevil our society is critical. You need to dissect why the previous regimes have failed. You need to reach out to the masses in informal settlements and villages across Kenya.
True.
The church system can help. Now, when people hear somebody of the faith coming out to campaign, they expect, okay, you're just you're going to be able to easily use and ride on the infrastructure that is the church system. Are you going to do that?
Well, I'm a Christian, and so certainly the churches have embraced my candidature very well. I'm very thankful that a number of leaders and congregants are wanting me to talk to them. But I'm not going to be a president for Christians only. I'm going to be a president for Kenyans. And so, for example, in August, when I go to Turkana and do exactly what I've told you, I'm going to be sitting with them and listening to them. For me, I think it is water that they need. maybe it is not water, you know. My first trip to Turkana, everybody was asking me, not for food, but for water. So I want to hear, is it really water? And if we determine, for example, that the Turkana people need water more than anything else, then all the drilling companies should be in Turkana when I become president as a priority. Instead of imagining, you know, maybe they need an airport. Maybe they probably don't need any of these fancy things. Once they have the basics, you know, people are hardworking enough, will generate enough to be able to pay taxes, to be able to serve ourselves, and life can go on. The very basics.
It's the basics.
Basics.
Ruben, we thank you very much for coming again today. So what next in your campaign strategy and plans?
So most importantly, expect me in your county anytime now. You know, when you hear Ruben is coming, let's get together. I'll be meeting you in groups, you know, because youth have different issues, women have different, so we'll talk. Right now, you know, get word out there, you know, get into social media and say, the alternative has finally publicly declared. People are saying, Ruben is running, but he has not declared. I have declared. Yeah. So let's do it. And, you know, for me, having an opportunity like this, you know, I really thank the Standard Group for opening up discussions such as this. I really like the Situation Room because it's not really about individuals. It's about issues.
Yeah.
And so I'm hoping people can get out there and make sure that you get your ID ready. And next year,
tukutane kwa debe.
Bas.
Asante sana. City, as we conclude, one line, today's proverb.
The beak of a bird is what tells you what it eats.
There you go. Ruben Kigame's beak will tell you the kind of bird that he is.
Good one. Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much for tuning into the Situation Room today. Have a lovely weekend, folks. It's now 10 a.m.
Spice up your life.
This is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto. Con Omore Osendo is before the RABC interview panel led by Elizabeth Muli, where he is explaining why he is best suited to fill the vacant position.
Transitioning from TI after about 4.5 years of doing anti-corruption and governance research, I knew